Sue.
Mr. Mayor, all present duly noted. I wanted to thank tonight, first of all, the city of Millersburg, who loaned us their old microphone system, which they just replaced last month. So it is a bit like karaoke. So we're going to pass microphones tonight, and you have to get a little bit closer than our current. But once again, thanks to the city of Millersburg. All present duly noted. And do we want me to swear in Jean?
Yep, if you
Okay.
can swear in Jean.
Mr.
that'd be
Pierce?
awesome.
So the way this works is I'm going to read it and then you're going to repeat after me. Okay? Then we'll have you sign both copies and sign my journal. Okay? Okay. I, Jean Piros,
I, Gene Piros,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States
that I will support the Constitution and the laws of the United States.
I will support the Charter and the ordinances of the City of Newberg,
I will support the Charter and the ordinances of the City of Newberg,
and I will, to the best of my ability, faithfully perform the duties
and I will, to the best of my ability, faithfully perform the duties of
of a City Council member of the City of Newberg, so help me God.
a City Council member of the City of Newberg, so help me God.
All right, you're official. All right. All right. Jean, welcome. Council, review of council agenda and meeting. Anything? I know there was one that we wanted off. We got it. Okay, it's off consent. Anybody else? Anything else? No? Okay, what about the financial statements for September? No? Hearing none? I think we're on to body cameras. Dave, is that you? Or Chief? I'm not sure who's presenting.
Yes. Yeah. Well, why don't you start now and go ahead.
I'm just going to be in there for a couple seconds. Are you guys going to sit up?
Yes.
No, all this impersonations. I'm just going to stand because they're going to do a presentation, but I just wanted to thank you all for taking a look at this and reconsidering it. And I say reconsider it because this was on my budget presentation last spring when I did the budget message from the police department. This was our #2 priority behind personnel, which we got neither of. But that's okay. So I just want to thank you for taking the time to listen to this. And I also want to thank Dave and Jeff for the work that they did on this. Like every good manager, I delegated it, and these guys do a great job. And they put a lot of work and effort into it. There's a lot of information out there available, body cameras and whatnot, and so it's a tedious process. I just wanted to publicly thank them for that, and I will turn it over to them. Thanks, guys.
So recently we were asked to take another look at body cameras. We've had this on the shelf for quite a few years now. We've looked at several different options, mainly something that's more hands-off or something that we take in-house. And while initially we could do in-house, we feel a little cheaper. I think it would be more expensive in the long run because of all the manpower it would take us to run this type of program in-house, both IT and records and storage and things like that. So Axon makes Taser. They are the market leader. You'll see that here in a minute. They are basically the Microsoft body-worn cameras in Taser. So this is largely their presentation, so most of it will apply to us. I'm going to apologize in advance. Our audio system is not working, so there's some videos that we're just going to kind of talk about what they're showing. This is some data that they have gathered, and it's basically saying that your complaints go down. You just watch the video, and it's pretty self-explanatory. The use of force incidents have gone down, and complaints about officer use of force has gone dramatically down. And court time goes down too, because once the defense attorney sees what actually happened, then they don't want to fight that. This is an idea of where Axon is in the state of Oregon. We've got clearly the market share.
Where's it?
It's not in Portland.
Portland.
It's not. Well, I don't know if Oregon State Police has it or not.
Portland doesn't have it?
Oregon State Police says Portland does not. And I'm told it's cost. You'll start to see that this is not cheap.
It's not,
They're just saying again how much complaints and use of force complaints go down. And they really are saying that the officers spend less time in court. Okay, so another thing that we discovered, and Jeff jumped in here, is we have an issue with the current tasers that the police department has. We're all in X26s now, and those came from hand-me-downs from, was it Portland Police?
Portland Police. I had some contacts and I was able to get, actually tasers for the entire town. We were getting rid of 800.
But the issue is the X26 it was manufactured in 2003, hasn't been supported since 2011 when the X2 came out. And they cannot get parts for them anymore. So as soon as, you have to train on, use training cartridges every year. When you use your taser in the field, you need a cartridge, but you can't buy those anymore. You can't buy batteries for them anymore. Yes. So what we found is there's an issue brewing here, where as soon as the PD runs out of stock, we're going to be having to buy tasers anyways. So we started.
Sorry. About how long, do you know about how long you have? I mean, obviously you don't know because you don't know how often you're going to be deployed, but do you know about how long you have left until?
I don't know that.
No, the technology is, what we're seeing is the technology is older, so it's not as safe. We're not seeing the issues, but we don't tase a lot of people. But they've made some vast improvements in the T7 that are pretty remarkable.
And then you see the current one for tasers, the T7 came out last year. And then you see the 83 is the current generation camera. And it's kind of hard to see, but you have this flex system. You can see here that you can have the camera on a remote, or you can have it right here on the body of the camera. The problem with having that you see in a lot of videos is if an officer has something right here, like if they draw a taser, if they draw a gun, or if they're in like a fighting stance, the first thing they do is they cover up their camera. And they're not doing it on purpose. So what they did is they came up with this remote mount. It's wired into the camera. You can see that's jacked in right there. And then you can either mount it up on your shoulder, or you can mount it up on a pair of glasses. The nice part about the glasses and some of the videos I've seen is if you have like there could be an event out coming right to left and the officer looks and sees it, but the body on camera doesn't. So if you get the officer mounted on their head, you're gonna see what they see at all times.
Oh, so is it small, pretty small?
It's that right there. And you can see it mounted on that glass right there. But it is wired, so you have a wire going from your uniform up to you.
And I think at this point, we had talked about, we would leave it as an option, we also have a shoulder mount, so that, you know, if you're uncomfortable, you know, that weight or that camera being on your glasses, then at least this would be above your thumb, where you may actually.
We're not picking it up on the tape.
We'll speak up.
Thank you.
It's just more what market share they have. Here's where the Axon product really won me over. My major concern is staff time. And I'm not saying this eliminates staff time by any way, shape, or form, but in the research that I have done, there are departments and cities saying, yes, we had to add IT staff, yes, we had to add record staff, yes, we had to add evidence staffs, things like that. What Axon does is they do a pretty good job in trying to reduce that. And I think that's where any cost savings you're going to get. So they have what's called evidence.com, and what happens is the officer in the field, their body cam uploads to Axon's cloud product. You'll see here in a few slides that they can then manage it, tag it, things like that. Then what it does is it allows you to get that out to your partner agencies. Everything has to go to the district attorney, so the district attorney gets a link, they can just download it. And then if it's like a public interest event, you can give the news or social media a link to it. And so you're reducing all that work that goes. And no one else has this.
Dude, what activates the camera?
We'll get into that in a minute. Just thinking video.
Yeah, it takes it a minute to load and come up. Yeah, here we go. Yep, I did it.
Now, I'm gonna narrate this a little bit. Apologize ahead of time. I didn't think that the audio was broken in here. So this is an officer responding to an Amber Alert. And he's gonna find the vehicle associated with the Amber Alert. And now you see his point of view from his body on camera. Now he's telling dispatch that he's located the vehicle, and a second here, he hears some noise off in the field, and he's going to go investigate. So now he's calling for backup. What they're going to start showing you here is the officers responding can view his body-worn camera, they can view his location. So he actually gets to the point here, at least they're demonstrating that he doesn't really know where he's at right now. And so they actually launch a drone, that's Taser's drone product, we're not asking for that. But it's going to show you an overhead view of it. It's going to show where this officer is actually located using his body-worn camera and his GPS. And then it's gonna, so it's showing the responding officers where that officer's actually standing. Like I said, no one else has this platform. you guys get the idea on the best work. So the plan that we're looking at, see, they call it the officer safety plan. This provides body-worn camera, this provides taser, this provides the evidence.com, this provides cartridges, batteries, training cartridges, certifies the officers in use of the taser, training for the body-worn camera. And then it's basically a subscription model, and you, it's a 5-year plan, you pay incrementally. So these are the things that you do. Here's add-on applications that you can get. I don't think there's any interest in getting those.
There's going to be a big learning curve anyway in the beginning. You can always add things.
It gives you analytics on what's going on. One thing about the new tasers is every time you charge them, it's also uploading information how many times it's been turned on or not. Another big thing is the redaction studio. Everything that you record is subject to public records law and can be requested. So what they're showing here is that you can go and block out that person's face and it will show it. It'll blur that person's face out. Or if someone's ID is on camera, you've got to blur that out. You have to do all those kind of things. And that's where a lot of the concern comes in, is who's going to do all that? What volume are you going to have? We don't really know precisely. But they have the best tools available that I have seen to speed up those redaction codes.
So we would still have to be doing those for redaction codes?
Yes. Yes. It would be against the law to release that personally identifiable information. So this is just the latest generation camera. It's more waterproof and it has better low light capability and it's less blurry.
I think what you shared with me is once you've done that initial redaction, that fuzz down spot will follow the camera, follow the image around it. That's all. So you don't have to do that frame by frame.
No, we have learned that some agencies are having trouble with videos that take more than 5 minutes, and that it doesn't blur out audio. And so you're still having to go through and redact out the audio as well. But that facial redaction is a huge help. No one else has that capability. So this charges better. It's essentially what happens is this body camera, when it's not on shift, it's docked, it charges, it uploads video, and then an officer comes in, takes off their dock. It's coded to them, it's coded to their taser, so you know who's drawing the weapon, who's drawing the weapon. It also has officer location. You can set real-time alerts, so administration might be concerned if weapons are drawn, it can send an alert to dispatch. If it has gunshot detection, so you could say, if I hear a gunshot go off, I want it to send these alerts, I want it live streaming on the dispatch screen, whose body cam detected that. It will also automatically turn on if the taser is turned on, or if the weapon is drawn, and it will do that for every body cam at the Bluetooth range, so it's turning them all on.
There's sensors on the bolster, so when it breaks the, I'm assuming it's magnetic, when it breaks that, then it turns on. So if you didn't have as an example, you were at a store, all of a sudden something happened, you didn't have your body camera on, as soon as you pull your weapon, it turns on, and all the cameras within about 30 feet come on, if they're not already.
So the integration with the taser, no one else is going to offer that, because they don't take it. They're not going to let anybody else use that technology. But they're all integrated. So if another officer 20 feet away from the captain turns on his taser, it will turn on his body cams.
Is there any way, like, for it to turn on if, like, you start yelling? You know what I mean? Like, you haven't taken, but you yelled at someone to stop, or no, it's all
No, so there's a manual turn on. So like when you go in a situation, you're supposed to turn it on. The issue is that you got, the reason why they did the weapon draw and the taser draw, is sometimes, like, in the situation, I'm just going to the convenience store to get a drink, and all of a sudden, you know, it's right in front of your face, I don't have time to turn on my body cam, and that's the last thing I'm thinking of. So that's why they put these other triggers in the body cam. And if someone 20 feet away shoots on their body cam, they're all talking to each other. You can do triggers like turn on the light bar of the car. You release a weapon from the weapons rack. So there's all these kind of triggers that you can program in. But as soon as that officer turns on under normal conditions, like say you're going to do a traffic stop or something, you turn on your, and then it'll show you the last 30 seconds of video prior to it being activated. So, and it will not give you audio.
For the first 30 seconds.
And then the moment you turn it on is when it will start giving you real audio in. So it kind of shows what's leading up to it. We're going to talk about gunshot activation. You can program gunshot activation so that it'll show up on the say dispatch screen, and it'll also stream their camera, so that they'll know immediately what's going on.
That's not just your gunshot, right? That's like if there is
If
a
it hears a
gunshot.
gunshot.
Yeah.
And you said you could program it to you turn the lights on, and you can, and it'll, or at any point.
So this is showing here just a situational awareness demo, and it, what triggered it is somebody drove by. And then, so like this could be dispatch, this could be the supervisor on shift, what's going on. And so they're actually remotely viewing that body. And it's basically a high-risk traffic stop. And you see what other units are on scene. I think he's going to go in here and he's going to start, he's going to remote activate that body worn camera if it's not off for some reason. And then you see that one come on, and now you have a different view of that same scene. And then you can rewind it and see what led up to that. You can see that this was some sort of traffic stop or pursuit or something like that. This is just showing the difference between low light quality between the second generation and the current generation. this is showing, they have a clear frame technology where it just shows where there's less blurry. And these are the highest quality cameras on the market. I have done that research. In fact, if I was gonna go with a different option, I would still use the Axon's camera. This is going over the different alerts that they have, basically showing you where everybody is on the map, and there's one active alert, needs to be a little bit more relevant to bigger agencies. If you wanted to go with in-car, it would integrate, it is another, what are some of the cars. But the nice part about it is it would integrate, and it would sync up, you would be able to see 3 body-worn cameras and 2 cars all sync together. It's a cloud-based system. The other issue you would have with the cars is the MDTs would typically store video, and we did not spec the MDTs to store video, so I'd have to look at that. They have a front mounted camera and a rear mounted camera, and you have a wireless mic if you want. If you're going to buy one camera, you don't have a system shows. Essentially what they would do is you wouldn't have live stream of those. You would have a wireless system set up so as soon as the car was here, it would to a server on site, and then it would upload to Axon's cloud. Just showing you the angle that it would record. I'm not sure what's what switch is. So that they would give us all the support that you could ask for on this. If you have a technical problem, they would, you have 24-hour support. You break the camera, they replace it. You break the taser, they replace it. You use a taser cartridge, they replace it. It's all part of the plan. But all the training you need to do to stay certified on the device. For the taser, any training you need for operation of body-worn cameras or redaction, it's all. Pricing? Everybody ready?
Save the best part for last, right? Cool, how much is it gonna cost?
You guys have a big giant piece of paper, and I'll put it up on the screen too, but I made it large because my old eyes couldn't read it that tiny. Hang on just a second.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry. I have ask some questions.
All right, yeah, all right.
How long do they store the footage in the cloud? Like, is there like a year,
So that's determined by the agency, and what you do is you, depending on the type of incident, is what would drive that. So you would set a retention policy for different acts. Like if it's a regular citizen stop, that might be 30 days. If it's a traffic stop, it might be 30 days. If it's a domestic, it might be different. I have no idea. I know there's guidelines that Lexipol puts out. I don't know what they are. The other thing that is coming, I don't want to talk about, would be integrating with our CAD. We're in the middle of upgrading our CAD, so we can't do it right now, but in 9 months or so, we could look at integrating our CAD with tasersevidence.com, and then it would automatically know, okay, this officer at this time was dispatched to this call. This is the call type we had. So it would automatically know, okay, this was a traffic stop. This was a welfare check. This is the officer. It would automatically code all that stuff, so the officer doesn't have to go in and do it. And then the officer would just have to basically make sure it's correct. So that would be another thing. The promotional discounts is savings of $30,000, and I got them to extend that to the end of the year. If you guys decide to do that, we'll be able to walk in that price. But if they're telling us that if we don't sign by the end of the year, then we will have to pay that $30,000. And that's basically all the equipment they're doing. What they're making their money on is storage. So year one is $117,000, and it drops down to 1 or 2 years. I believe that is fine, we can get back out into the cycle. So it's not, but it's going forward, you expect 100,000 more here to do this system.
I have a couple more questions. So then, after 5 years, what happens? You renew your contract and then you buy all new equipment, or how does that?
So basically what they're averaging right now is about every 2.5 years. So obviously halfway through this cycle, they're projecting to have better equipment, better cameras, maybe a new taser comes out. That's all included in your price. So there's no upgrade, there's no extra fee. We talked to Sherwood, and I think they're on their second camera in their billing cycle, so it hasn't changed. They said, yep, send us the brand new cameras. They come on a pallet, you issue them out, you take the old ones, you ship them back.
And then I have one more question.
Sure.
I'm assuming that all the other agencies that have these have some sort of policy around using them. What do you foresee? Like, are policies like you have to turn it on every time you make a traffic stop? Like, how does the department manage the policies around what you can and can't do with them?
So we are with Lexipol, which is a policy, that's our policy manual. We also have Sherwood to draw from. They have implemented their cameras. Because we are a Lexipol member, I can sort of adopt their policy and change some things, and maybe some things in our policy that we want to do differently. We want to maybe report things longer or not. Just depends. But I've also listened to the people who have used it and said, well, we started this way, but really you don't need to retain these this long. Or actually, we started here. We really decided you need to retain them longer. So I would say that we would share the industry knowledge and be the recipient.
My understanding is when you're on a call or having contact with a citizen, that you are recording. In a scenario of a traffic stop, as soon as you turn your white power on, perform that traffic stop, it's going to turn on anyways.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, please.
So just to kind of reiterate what Stephanie was saying, we're looking at about 100,000 a year that we would just kind of, once we've kind of set that aside, we could just kind of keep doing that consistently.
It's just like a line item for gasoline.
Right, and then after 5 years, we then need to probably just have another 30,000 for.
Yeah, we might even be able to fine tune what we need,
Right.
or increase, decrease, depends on technology, or so yeah. But at the end of 5 years, I'm sure they'll always let you upgrade.
Of course.
But I guess you're not
Yeah.
going to be able to.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, and then
This
my
is
other.
a subscription service though, so
Right.
if you elect not to renew your contract for 5 years, you're going to have to give them back their body worn cameras.
Totally, yeah, okay. My other question was, do you see anything negative about body cameras? Like, or what you, apart from the price, but is there anything that you think would be a negative impact?
No, the only, I would say the only thing is, we're looking forward to having them. I think some things need to be explained, and we'll see when we get there. And I would use the example, if you watch, say, an NFL game, how many cameras are around that stadium? And if I like this team, there's no way that foot was in. If you like that team, heck yeah, that foot was in.
For sure, yeah.
You know, so those smaller things might be an issue. But honestly, we don't get a lot of complaints, but the data shows that they should go down. I know for a fact, the Newberg Police Department, that they've had, I don't think they have body-worn cameras, but they have recorders. And they may have purchased cameras. But anyway, I know that I talked to some of their administration, and people are upset because it's, they get the story from someone. And they say, well, come on in, look at the video, it's okay. And then that complaint seems to go away.
Yeah.
So I'm not, we're not afraid of the cameras.
I don't have any concerns on the technology end, especially with this product.
Right.
My concern would be the unknowns of the support.
How much it's gonna take, like,
Yes.
yeah.
And the other thing is, we did have kind of a compressed time. The only thing that I would like to do is, as you can see, that's a big price tag. These are really the industry leaders. I would just like for Dave and I to be able to go to, say, maybe a little bit bigger department and say, okay, walk me through what you do. And so, $500,000 to me, if I can't see it and actually show me how to take the camera, put it on, I take the camera, I take it off, I dock it, I go and I make sure that I make all of my selections, and where does it go from there? So that is my only reservation whatsoever. We just didn't have time to, we were able to go to Sherwood, and they're smaller than we are. They love them, have no issues, they're wonderful. I would just like to go to a little bit bigger agency and make sure that this is all really what it's cracked up to be. I'm sure it is, but I would just like to have that.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Any conversations gone on with the union yet and what they think, and would this, if we did this, would it trigger us having to renegotiate anything with the union?
You could. I think most of the officers are in favor of them. We would probably need to sit down and work with them as well. I think number one, you gotta get better buy-in. So I think I've been told that it's not clear whether or not you can just buy cameras and say you're wearing them, or you need to work with the unions. And so I would rather the officers and the rest of us would rather have the officers buy in and be happy about it, and then we would give them some leeway. Like I said, you don't want to wear it on your glasses and you put it on your shoulder. We could probably bring them in on some of the retention stuff, or build a plan and work together. But I don't. My gut is that we're not going to get pushback.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes, sir.
So just in general for staff, what I'd like to see, because of the price tag, I'm recalling our last budget process and some of the messages we were given. I personally would like to see an overall, and this isn't necessarily you guys, this is more kind of a math thing, I think, is how this fits into our long-range financial plan, structural deficits and those types of things. I'd like to, just in general, see how this impacts that. And not only that, we've been given some different information over the last few months, and I do think it would be good to have kind of an overall, we get the financial statements, but I'd like to see an overall kind of update on that maybe before we start the budget process. And the timing for this, were you guys thinking of asking for this at the next budget, or was this something that you wanted right now?
This is a current ask. If you recall from the presentation, the $30,000 discount goes away as of January 1. We have done the financial review. We're comfortable with the resources there. You're looking at the equivalent of probably a fully equipped and half of a police officer. And that's probably the equation that you're looking at. You're looking at savings from certainly liability, officer safety, no doubt. A whole lot of other areas, and frankly, being part of the 21st century. Our department, Independence, had acquired the same system. Sherwood next door has this system. It is where we're going, and as we fall behind, our exposure legally and operationally just grows. It's just, in my opinion, and I gave you this opinion when I first started. I believe this is where you need to be going, and the sooner, frankly, the sooner the better. Some investments just need to be made, and again, we have identified the resource. We'll be coming back to you in December with both the financial package, both the sole source acquisition authority, as well as the actual purchase agreement.
If I might, one more
Sure.
follow on. What I'd ask during that December meeting is that you also give us kind of a thumbnail sketch of the overall situation we're in, because, I think we're all fairly curious how we can absorb this when, it was fairly doom and gloom last year, so.
Understood. I will be working with Matt as well as the police department to take a look at those numbers and see how we can justify that looking along.
Anyone else?
I had one
Go ahead.
is there one-time monies that we could, obviously that's not a sustainable long-term thing, but for like the next, like this first year or whatever, are there one-time monies that we could use?
Well, one of the one-time monies you can look at pretty easily is the difference between what was projected by way of an outcome this past year and what turned out to be the reality of that. That would have covered 3 years' cost by itself.
Right.
So I think, that's an easy place to look. That has been a pattern.
I guess the other thing is that if you're going to be, speaking to larger departments, I'd also love to know somebody who's had it for a longer period of time. As you mentioned, Dave, the question of support. Support may be fantastic for the first 2 weeks, and then, so somebody may have had it for a longer period of time.
Not recently for me, but, the PD's been asking for this for, it's on my 2015 technology plan that they asked me for. So this has been kind of on my radar off and on. It comes out, and I do a little bit of research, and I find there's no money, and I shelve it. So over the years, I've talked to actually quite a few agencies. The only, everybody loves Axon's product, from what I can tell. The only things that have come out of this is the administrative side and the unknowns. And unfortunately, I've talked to a lot of larger agencies, because they're the ones that have the funds to buy this. And so, like Beaverton told me that they added 2 record staff. Well, that's hard for us to relate that, because they're a much larger agency. So there might be a need there might not. I just don't know. I haven't had time to try to quantify that, and I don't know if I would be able to quantify that for you.
Well, I think, though, that does actually, if staff is looking into it, that probably does raise a fairly good question, because if you're going to need some form of staff, whether it's a half-time person, we might as well look at that in terms of the total cost of this, the annual cost, to make sure that we're
And
apples to
I'm
apples.
not saying that that's
Right.
gonna happen or not.
Right.
I'm just telling you that I haven't been able to say which way that might go.
Right.
And I just don't think we know, at least I.
Stephanie?
Are there any competitors coming up for that?
Ones they haven't purchased.
Like, I just feel like,
No,
yeah, is there anybody down the road that's gonna lower these prices because there's, somebody else that's gonna be
It's just like
crazy?
anything else, as the technology, I shouldn't say anything else. Most of the things is, technology grows, a lot of times the prices come down, look at,
Yeah,
I still call it a thumb drive, and everybody wants to take it. Those were like $90, now you pay them up for $5. So I don't know if that technology will do the same thing.
yeah,
There are some competitors, but they don't have
the same.
the whole system. So like the best thing that I can do, if you don't want to go with Axon, is I would propose a hybrid system that we house all of the routine video here on site, and then anything that's important is uploaded to the cloud. And then, I'm telling you, it's not going to pencil out, because I'm going to ask for another IT staff, and they're going to ask for another records person, and
I just more mean like, in 10 years, are we just gonna see this increasing, or is there gonna be another competitor coming up that's gonna be competing and we're not gonna be seeing like a steady increase that, somebody will have another product that's similar or almost as good, and so we're not gonna see like this steep, everybody uses
In the
them.
contract, we could certainly look at that.
I'm just curious,
But I can't give you, an
Yeah.
answer in the future.
yeah.
There's one more thing. I was gonna say, I think I can get over to the agency that I want to get to, probably 2. So I think I could put something on email that would be okay? And at least, hey, going over, we're gonna have to, match schedules, but I can do it in a week or a weekend, over and the reason, it's the Hillsborough Police Department is what I wanna go with. I know the records, manager there, so she's gonna give you the unvarnished truth. And they also, I believe, if I'm right, they got the same kind of Sherwood, right?
Yes,
So,
they were beat on that, right?
so that would be something that I would be interested in, because Sherwood, they didn't seem to, I mean, it's a learning curve, of course, but they didn't seem to be as bogged down as, say, Hillsborough. Now, again, I think you get closer to the metro area, you're probably going to get more requests. That's just a guess.
All right, anyone else? Anything else?
I think it's awesome.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I'd like to, so December, we'll hear more, right? Okay. If
Thanks
I-
for all your work.
Yeah,
It's
thank
been a
you,
lot.
thank you. If I could just, I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but I'll do it, I'll say it anyway. Thank you all, Dave, and everyone who rallied to get the power and all up. And we have the, thank you, Stevie and Matt and everybody, all the staff that did that. I know it was, for some of you guys in IT, it was a long night, so.
Everyone pitched in on CIP, did the line share the work. We're just doing 2 and 3 different things at a time, talking to each other, talking on the phone, working on the computer. It was pretty impressive. For me, I just stepped back, so I guess I
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thanks very much. And thank you for this.
Wait, come back.
Go ahead.
Both of us or just not?
All three of them.
No, it's
No,
good.
it's good,
It's
it's
good.
I don't want to butcher it. Come back up.
I'm good, thank you, that.
Oh, oh. Okay, well, I just, on behalf of, I'm gonna say everyone, sorry, I'm saying that. On behalf of everyone, I just really wanted to recognize, the officers that were recognized at the banquet this, I think it was on Friday, Oregon Police Officers Association, and specifically that life-saving event that happened. Near and dear to my heart, makes me want to start crying just talking about it, and, so thank you for all you've done, and I will read the name of people. Canine Officer Steve Schoenig. And I think he received the Distinguished Service Award, is that correct? Could you tell us what that means?
It's a criteria for OPOA. It has to do with his assignment as a canine officer. And length of time, as many dogs, dedication.
Sergeant Mark Cook, Captain Jeff Kosmicki, Officer Tom Sattler, Officer Daniel Fouch, Officer Justin Coughlin, Officer Ariel Securis Life, Life-Saving Award, sorry, that was on. What was the life-saving award? Was that the award that I just mentioned? And then Officer Jeremy Hyland, is that right? Also for life-saving with valor. And then Senior Officer Nate James, Medal of Valor Award. So if everyone remembers, I think this was back in January-ish time? January,
Well,
February?
it was a few different incidents.
The one that I'm referencing was, I think, in the spring, but thank you so much, and it does not go unnoticed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I hope now that we have a PIO on staff, that may be something that we could get out for greater dissemination, if it's not already been disseminated, that information.
Can be done. I think actually we have shared that information with the head for furniture.
Okay.
I saw it separately.
Yeah.
Good, all right. Let's see, how's about a city manager's report, Dave, since we've got a couple of tips?
Just so happens. So you took
took the words in my mouth. Thank you, Pete folks, for all their hard work on the power outage. That was, I was at home on standby, getting the latest and greatest from Matt and the team, so they were keeping me in the loop. But I was ineffectual other than just wishing them well. They did a great job, and power was on. The computers are running this morning. There's more to be done. I know Dave has got a little bit of a to-do list, and we're going to do an after-action report this Wednesday to see what went right, what went wrong, and what we can do next steps to avoid similar problems. Wanted to share with you that also that we are off and running on the IT master plan. I know there were some of you may have thought at the beginning that there would be a heavy council involvement in that. We will be coming to you with information, and you will be solicited for your opinions. But Dave is off and running. He has a vendor selected, and that's ongoing. We all saw the papers on the register as well as the graphic and a long lengthy report on the investigation. I just want to say that I know there's some confusion perhaps out in the public as to what's next. Well, by and large, you've done your jobs. The direct employee that you had was Joe Hannon. He's no longer with us. So what's left has been given to the city manager to take any further steps. That is in the works, and so I just want to share with you that that is not there is more to be done, more follow-up, but the goal really is just to create an environment where that won't happen again, and that you will have a good team in place, and that team will understand the whole notions of teamwork, and we will work together in a better way. So my goal, of course, is I won't be here with you long term, but it's at least to lay the groundwork for that to happen. So I'll be sharing what outcomes, if any further outcomes there are as time goes on. There was a further editorial in the Register this week. It was unfortunate because I really loved the editorial they did the last time, where they teed it up for your transparency, and I thought that was wonderful because frankly, very few councils would have taken that step, and I think it's proved its value to share that outcome. This week they sort of painted with one brush bad behavior in Newberg, equated it to what's going on in Yandell County Housing Authority. I don't know what that is, but regardless, I think it's unfortunate because there's very little, there's very vast majority of what goes on in our operational staff and what they do, as you noted with the work on the power outage, has been very positive. And the paper sometimes doesn't really pay close attention or want to do much homework to see what's really going on underneath. So that was unfortunate because they had a very nice editorial the week before. Catch you up on the recruitment, just so you know, and that'll be the last thing I'll report on for tonight. Heather Gans and Walter Associates, I spoke with her earlier this evening. She sent me an updated report. We're now up to 24 candidates. 8 of those are under strong consideration. There's another 7 under evaluation. 5 or 6 have actually been set up or have already had telephone interviews conducted by her to do further screening work. We have 8 of those 24 that have already been advised they won't be proceeding in the process. They don't really meet the necessary minimum qualifications. And then we did lose one following his read of the publicity. Honestly, if that's what scared him away, he should have stayed away. So, reminder, the deadline is November 24th, and you are meeting on December 2nd to narrow what becomes the ultimate field of candidates, hopefully down to 5 or so, no more. That will be the part of the interview panel. The interviews on December 15th and 16th. And our team is working to get that all set up. So that's where we are today on these things.
Questions for the city manager? All right. So again, let's remind some of the calendar items. So as David mentioned, but as a reminder, we've got 3 meetings in the month of December, right? So December 2nd and December 16th. Those are interviewing for the public. Those are actually for the city manager interviews, so those will be closed. We do have an open meeting on the 9th of December, but it will be business session only, no work session that particular night. And then again, for all of the folks in the public, the city manager candidate meet and greet is December 15th at the Cultural Center, Sunday from 6 to 8 p.m. So We hope both the audience here and the listening audience will come and see what we hope will be a fantastic group of candidates for the city manager position. All right, the other thing, for the city council, Sue has 2 different polls that she's going to send out. First, to set up a half day for goal setting sometime in January, so you'll see that one. And then, again, back to the idea of having special meetings or town hall meetings each quarter, and we'll look for dates for those. So Sue will be sending those polls out. All right, anything else? We've got about 4 ticks. Anything else? Anyone? All right, let's take a break, and then we'll be back for the business session at 7 o'clock. Let's call the council business session for November 18th to order. A roll call, please, Sue.
Mr. Mayor, all present duly noted. Just a reminder about the microphones. You do have to pick them up and hold them kind of close to your mouth. Thanks to the city of Millersburg, our regular system died. So we're borrowing this from them until such time as we get new equipment. Bye.
Okay, thank you. Pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you all. Council, I'd like to test your indulgence, if I might, and the folks that will be presenting. If we've got a fair number of general public comments, if I could move them in the agenda, if you all don't mind too much, if nobody objects. I'd like to start with that then, and then we'll move on to the presentations in 4A. So we'll move to item number 6, so public testimony. Let's start, if we might, with Ben Hartley on Sheridan Street sign change, please.
Good evening. I want to begin by acknowledging that this is November and Native American Heritage Month. And it's in light of that I want to share a brief comment. I'm here first and foremost to encourage the Newberg City Council to develop a closer relationship with the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde and other Native American peoples. I don't know the status of your relationship with Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde, but I just want to encourage that as the most important thing, in a sense, that I have to say. But because you're a city council and you like concrete proposals, I'm going to give you one. Philip Sheridan is memorialized on a Newberg street sign a few blocks north of us right now. Philip Sheridan was a Civil War general. Philip Sheridan also led military campaigns against Native Americans across the American West. The first of those campaigns was in 1855 against the Yakima peoples, where he torched and burned a Roman Catholic mission that sought to serve the Yakima people. Philip Sheridan is also infamous for saying the only good Indian is a dead Indian. I don't think that Philip Sheridan should be memorialized on a street name, at least not the way it is now. I believe in the importance of remembering rightly. And I believe Newberg should acknowledge this history by adding a sign, not taking away the Philip Sheridan sign, but adding a sign to those posts where that sign, those signs that state Sheridan Street currently exist. I believe it should be replaced or be added to a sign that says Calipuyan Street or some name of some other Native American leader that you all could discern in your deliberations. This is just one possibility. As I've said, my greater intention is to encourage a deeper, more intentional relationship with the Calipuyan people and the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde. A couple of other ways you could do that could be by planting indigenous plants on city property in various places. By starting, in addition to a Pledge of Allegiance, with a brief land acknowledgement, being grateful for the Calipuyan people and for the stewardship of this land that they've done for thousands of years. Whatever the City Council does by way of developing more of a relationship with Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde and Native American peoples more generally, I want to encourage you to do that. I chose today not to bring a lot of other people with me because I've learned in the last 7 years of living in Newberg that you all, as a city council, are a more friendly folk than the folks in Philadelphia where I came from. And that sometimes a more soft opening is best. You don't know me very well, I don't know you, but I wanted to speak my mind about this thing that I care a great deal about. And I wish you well in your deliberations, and I can assure you that I'll be back. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Harden. All right, next, Pat Haight, please. Yep, nope, I think it just goes with no buttons.
No button.
No buttons, there you are.
Is that it?
That's it.
I'm not being charged for this, am I?
Well, we'll think about that.
My name's Pat Haight, and I've lived in this town most all of my 81 years, as other people have heard. And before I die, I decided I wanted to make a statement about something. And this morning on the news, my decision was made, and I'm here tonight. Every town in America has a drug problem. However, no one talks about it. You never hear people talking about the drug problem. Maybe it's because of the shame, because maybe one of their family members is into drugs. Maybe it's guilt, because they don't talk about it. The media doesn't say after somebody's shot 10 people at a backyard party, they don't say he was loaded on meth or heroin or fentanyl or opioids. None of that. It's mental disturbance now. It's like we're turning the problem off. They don't mention that drugs might have been a possibility why the guy did the terrible things he did. To your neighbors, not in this town yet. Locally, both the Newberg Police Department and Tualatin Valley Fire Department have told me, and I'll quote, "This is where our town's at. Think about this and listen, please. Most of the calls we make in Newberg are for overdoses of drugs." Is anybody talking about it? No. Does it bother me? It scares the hell out of me. Why? Because I'm a mother. And I have a son who is a meth addict. Okay? And it was Mr. Kosmicki on our police department who literally saved my life one day because of how many other mothers in this town are going through this. I want to know how many more. Have you talked about it? Half of us? You know what worries me is our average age in this town now is 35 years old. I love seeing all these young people here, but I'm afraid for them because they're moving to this town thinking their kids are going to grow up safe. And that's not the case today. That's not the case. Your kids are in great danger. On KOIA News today, 5 people a day are dying in this state because of opioids. Oh my God. Have you got your pills locked up? Have you thrown away the ones you don't use, brought them down here to the police department? You know, I'm not here to criticize the police department because they bailed me out many, many times in the last 80 years, but I've never had a ticket yet. This is my town. My great-grandfather came over Rex Hill in 1870 in a covered wagon with 11 kids and thought he'd come to heaven here. And now what is it? We better lock our doors at night. You better do that. Because when you're on meth, you don't know where you are sometimes. Is that right, Mr. Police Department? Yes, that's right. I can tell you that. Sorry, I didn't mean to upset anybody, because there's women in here tonight. Chances are one of you has had or is having the same problem I've had. Loving your kids when they're trying to kill you. Okay, do you want to think about that tonight when you go to bed? Because it's not something I want to leave this town thinking about. I want it to be a safe place. I want 5-year-olds to see movies about what meth does to a person. I want them to be afraid of these drugs. I want Newberg to set a precedent and do something about it for the people of town, the young people that are moving to this town, one after another, because it's a great place to live. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you very much.
Pat,
Yeah,
we are aware of this going on.
I need to say that.
Well, no, more than aware. You know, I work outside of city council because it's not really a policy question, and so does Elise. We both work, that's our day jobs, trying to figure out ways to reduce all drugs and poverty and suicide, and to work with the community on the intervention side, and that is working with kids and working with parents to help parents be better
I
parents.
appreciate that,
Yes.
but I don't want you to start in the middle after it's too late. I want you to start when they're 5.
Well, that's what we're doing. That's what both of us are doing, is starting in the
You're
beginning.
not going to have a kid scared when he's 6
Yep.
years old and dead when he's 16.
I absolutely agree. Intervention is the way. And Elise and I both work in that kind of field.
One thing I should have mentioned earlier, and I apologize, but as public comments come before us, we do have something called Issue Tracker, which appears then with the agenda in the future, so you can see what we have done to try to move the issue that you brought before us forward. So, anyway. All right, let's see, Mr. Michael Gunn, please, on the question of the graphic article and the investigation report. Sir.
I think everybody remembers me from a couple of weeks ago.
Mr. Gunn, if you could speak into the microphone. There we go. Thank you.
Okay, I think everybody remembers me from a couple of weeks ago. I was here to hope to, at least what I tried to do is give you an honest, objective viewpoint of where I thought the city stood, where the city went wrong, et cetera, on this patent case and all the subsequent activities that happened there. And the mayor, at the end of the public comments, said how serious the city thought these matters were, and they were not going to be, I'm paraphrasing, swept under the rug, but you have to basically understand this is a governmental entity, and you know, things don't happen as in private entities. Later, I was approached by the mayor and council lady Holloman, saying how serious they took these matters, and I was somewhat skeptical of that, but I took both of you at your word, etc. And I have to say, without being disingenuous, what I've seen subsequent to that, I'm more skeptical, because one thing that happened from a legal standpoint, as you already know, Judge Collins denied your motion for a JNOB and a new trial. Most attorneys that are worth their salt will tell you that cases up on appeal have a very, very small chance of ever getting reversed on appeal. I'm just, from what I've read, you're going to appeal this case. I'm certainly not your attorney giving you legal advice, but what I'm telling you is you've got little chance of getting this reversed on appeal. Now, I would hope that the city and/or its insurance company get the sued for $400,000, give or take a few $1,000s, based on alleged misconduct of employees, would concern you. What I want to focus on at this point in time right now is this investigative report, and that's what concerns me. Now, I know, at least I shouldn't say I know, from what I've read,
the city adopted this report basically verbatim, okay? 290 pages. And then the city releases that to the, to the public. The Graphic writes a very, very slanted article that basically puts the city employees, Brooks, Casey, and Kosmicki in a bad light, accepts verbatim the findings of the report. And I'm here to tell you, and I don't have an accent, Ryan. Believe me, I don't like telling you that there's been misconduct, okay? I've known Truman Stone for a long time. But you know, when I guess I have to tell things the way I see them, okay, bottom line. And I've never met Miss Lee, but when I read allegations of wrongdoing, etc., and I see a jury that comes back in 90 minutes and basically believes those allegations, and then I read all these investigative reports by the police, etc., you know, I got to put 2 and 2 together and equal 4, and I would hope you do the same thing. But what it appears to me, and a lot of citizens, I don't think anybody's up here going to challenge me on this, is that you're all too eager to accept verbatim this investigative report of Barry Ellsworth, whom I dealt with him many times in land use situations, basically throw the police department under the bus, and Dave Brooks, who happens to be a reserve officer, is the IT director, and basically give the city employees that caused you this mess a free pass, okay? It wasn't these 3 guys, Brooks, Casey, and Kosmicki, that got you into this mess. And believe me, every day, from my opinion, you're digging yourself a deeper hole in the situation. But let's just look at this investigative report, if we will. Okay, what happened on this? CIS, Tamara Jones is after these workplace violations, or workplace harassment filed by Anna Lee, is basically hired by the city or through CIS to shepherd this investigation of these 3 allegations of workplace harassment, okay? Which I would submit are a ruse to detract from the real findings in this case, which is the reason the city got stung for $400,000 for wrongdoing of the city employees. But be that as it may, Tamara Jones works for CIS, who was defending the city on the patent case, of which Brian Casey was alleged to have committed wrongdoing, etc., and Dave Brooks potentially. That is a clear conflict of interest. She goes on for 6 months supervising the firm of Barry Elsner in this case, and then all of a sudden, after 6 months, recuses herself. That she thinks that it's best that she does not go on. I know Mayor Rogers, my time is up. I have 2 individuals that are willing to yield some of the time to me.
Does that include
Mr. Colby and
Mr. Colby?
Ms. Wallace if necessary.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sir?
I will hold it to 10 minutes, okay? Because I know there are other people who want to talk. Here's the first question to you. Does anybody ask the question? I'm not trying to be cynical. These are bottom line questions any attorney or anybody that sits on the city council ought to ask. Why is this refusal? Why after 6 months does she recuse herself? Well, there's, I don't know, but I've heard, and that's obviously it's a second hand, I've heard there's allegations that she's a friend of Anna Lee's. Now, I don't know if that's the case. It ought to concern you if there's allegations that are out there. Somebody that's investigating this for 6 months. Then what happens? Todd Lyon gets hired. I've never met the gentleman before in his life. I mean, he might be the best attorney in the world. Why did he get hired after Miss Jones was on there for 6 months? And then finally, this 290-page investigative report put out by Heather Martin of Barry Ellsworth. Now, I read a lot of investigative reports when I practiced law, a lot of them, because I litigated a lot of cases. This is not an objective investigative report. This is an expository writing by somebody that candidly is not experienced in investigating cases of this nature, puts in a lot of innuendos, opinions, etc. It's not based in fact. Jeff Kosmicki is excoriated in there for telling the OSP investigator that he should focus on the credibility of Truman Stone and Anna Lee and their motives in this alleged burglary that was alleged to have happened. They sit on for 3 months, don't tell anybody because they think Brian Casey did it. Actually, they tell at least 1 or 2 people that Brian Casey did it. when you're a police officer investigating a case or any investigator, the first thing you gotta look at is who the complainant is, okay? The complainant is Anna Lee and Truman Stone, okay? That's basically agreeing with her. What's their motive in this situation? What's their credibility? Do they have an axe to grind? Well, what do you think the motive is? The first thing they should look at. She is alleged to have destroyed or altered evidence after a preservation, immediately after a preservation order was given to her. Truman Stone is alleged to have told Dave Brooks not to back up evidence in violation of a preservation order. I mean, a cop, and that's not being disingenuous, a police officer cannot investigate adequately without looking at all the facts, and that includes what the motives are of the complainants. Now, what's happened subsequent to that? You have, basically the city has chosen in the past not to make personnel matters public matters. And I would submit that in this situation, you've really opened up a can of worms. You've released this investigative report. You've released this investigative report, rubber stamping it with an acceptance by the city council out to the media. Look at what the graphic did with this, okay? These cops are thrown under the bus. You have no problem doing that. I'm not trying to castigate all of you. I don't know what your vote was on this. It was an executive session. You have no problem doing this and accepting it verbatim. But I want to ask you this question. I think a lot of other citizens do. What has been done as far as investigating or holding people accountable for what got you into this mess? And I want to give you specific examples. The city attorney alleging to have told Dave Brooks not to preserve evidence. The city attorney being told that there was a burglary done and not doing anything, not reporting it. He could have reported it to the DA, OSP, Yamhill County Sheriff, assuming that he and Anna Lee really thought that Brian Casey did it, which I told you last time I was here was patently absurd and defamatory. And then using attorney-client privilege as a shield to investigators trying to investigate this burglary. What's been done about that? What's been done as far as trying to investigate Anna Lee for these alleged wrongdoing? I mean, aren't you concerned when somebody is a city employee is alleged to have destroyed evidence or altered evidence? I mean, the average person is going to get fired doing that, okay? Mayor Rogers says, well, the government is kind of slow, etc. This happened 2 years ago. I'm just saying that, you know, the aura, the persona that you're giving people here is that, hey, the city employees, if they do any wrongdoing selectively, it's no problem. People are told there's no big deal, you're just supposed to forget about it, etc. Yet when these officers and Dave Brooks try to do their job, etc., then they're fully investigated and thrown under the bus with basically threats of termination. So I told you I'd be up for 10 minutes. I'm saying that, you know, I'm very disappointed, dissuaded, etc. by personally, but I know, in my opinion, you're not doing your job at all. It's easier for you just to sit back and do nothing, and, you know, that's what I'm saying. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Gunn. Rebecca, did you yield your time to,
No, he only used 10.
okay, step right up then.
Mayor, council, I would like to talk about public records requests.
Get closer to the mic.
Better? Yeah. McMinnville has this really cool portal on their website for public records where you can, I would encourage you to go look at that because it would be really cool if Newberg could adopt something similar to what McMinnville has. It's like you click through to this portal and you get to choose if you want city public records, police public records, or fire public records. With Newberg, you have to email the city reporter for that. I have put in several requests through email, and I also put in a request in person. And I've gotten responses back, which is great. But they're currently where it sits is I asked for clarification 5 days ago on being more specific. They asked me to be more specific on one of my requests, that I needed to put in keywords, specific keywords and dates, which I thought my request was very thorough in what I asked for. I asked for a specific person and a specific item, and I asked for a date range. I gave a month and a year, between a month and a year. It sounded like it was enough to me. It wasn't. I got an email back asking me to clarify, so I didn't quite understand what was being asked. So I emailed back to Sue and also to David Klein, and I haven't heard back from David Klein at all. I emailed him twice. Once was a request asking for a reduction in fees. It was a mistake on the first email. I had an email that went out to me that would cost $180 for what I was asking for. So I assumed it was 3 hours of work. Ended up being it was 1 hour of work, and that was clarified that it was only $60 instead of $180. Okay, so I sent in a request to David Klein because per the resolution it says that you have to submit to the city manager what the reason is that you're asking for the reduction. And I did not put my address on the form. I mean, my husband's a police officer. I don't really like to put my address on public forms, but I actually sent back an email and said, and that was also 5 days ago, I believe, saying that it was in the interest of transparency, because that's what everyone came back a couple of weeks ago, saying that they wanted to be 100% transparent, or as transparent as you can be without compromising confidential information. Totally understand that, but have not heard back about that either. So I feel like I'm receiving pushback, or I'm not being respected in, I'm asking for these things. And I'm doing my share of what I'm supposed to be asking for these public records. And I started my public records request on October 23rd. Like, I think it was the 23rd. And the most recent one that I put in was on the 6th of November, and that's the one that, like, I just keep going back and forth. Well, and then I sent an email back and said, can you give me an example? If you want more specific keywords and you want more information from me, what exactly is it? Can you give me an example of one that someone's put in that is correct? No response, 5 days ago. So if that could be put on the issue tracker, and perhaps that means that if we adopted something similar to what McMinnville has, where it's a portal and it's kind of more automated, then that would be great. But if you could help me out, I would really appreciate that.
Thank you. All right, let's see, moving along. Item 4A, the Chamber Quarterly Report. Shannon.
Good evening, City Councilors and Mayor, City staff. Congratulations to City Councilor Pyros on your recent appointment. I am fortunate for 2 City Council meetings in a row to be bringing positive tidings. Of course, we celebrated Small Business Saturday last time I was here 2 weeks ago. And now I have a positive first quarter report for the Visitor Center on behalf of the Cheyenne Valley Chamber of Commerce, which we had a chance to review. Courtesy to our audience, and just in case you were a little bogged down by other issues, I'm happy to recap some of the highlights. We did have a higher number than usual walk-ins to our visitor center, and this is not only an increase over the previous quarter, but an increase over the previous year's quarterly dates. There's probably a more efficient way to put that I'm not saying, but we're doing better than we did last year even. I think part of that is due to the campaigns that we have throughout the spring and summer, and then of course all of the great work that Visit Newberg and Executive Director Leslie Caldwell are accomplishing on behalf of our community. We're seeing the results of that in our visitor center. We had a significant increase on website visitation duration. So we went from 1.5 minutes to 11 minutes. And our mayor was actually asking about that over the weekend, what those possibilities would be. I have my suspicions. I confirmed with our staff and our program coordinators, but it looks like we're actually just putting out better content.
So we have more content, it's actually engaging our readership, so they're coming to our website, staying to read the content we have on the article. They're also navigating to other pages after that point, and we're doing a much better job of interfacing with social media. So we've done a great job connecting our Facebook posts, our Instagram posts to actual content from our website and from our social media, or sorry, our external media output. So our weekly newsletter, we're actually getting a higher level of engagement there. And we're smarter about how we are linking back to our website and linking back to our social media pages. So we've just increased our efficiency. I want to give a huge shout out to our staff. That is really Josh Duder, our community coordinator, Patty Music, our operations manager. We have Jean Biggerstaff on our website. And of course, we have a host of volunteers who are really thoughtful about making Newberg and Dundee surrounding areas and community. So that was a big win for us. We did have higher personnel costs for this quarter, but this was the quarter that we brought on seasonal support. We had additional weekend visitor-centered coverage from Memorial Day through September 30th. That was Jackie Henriquez. Our community loved her. We will be inviting her back next year. She's actually a 12th school district employee, so it works well for her schedule to serve our community as a Newberg resident as well. Our overall operating expenses were lower than usual, but that is due in fact, well, due to, we thought we'd be in our new space, which has a higher lease rate than we're currently in. And just as an update to you, we expect to be in Hancock Commons by mid-April at this point. So at that point, you'll see our overhead increase. We'll watch those numbers closely and manage our stewardship wisely at this point. I will open up our quarterly report to the council for any questions or comments.
Hurley, questions? Patrick?
You know, we always have a question, right?
I appreciate that.
Awesome. Thank you for the report, it's great. I was a little confused by the website traffic. You have the most visited page, second most visited page, and then, so I'll just use the most visited page. It says plan your visit, and then there's some space and it says homepage. And I was wondering if that lined up with Q2 and Q1, or if that was, it just looked like a formatting thing to me, and I was just trying to figure out what lined up with what there, sorry.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. And I think it's a formatting issue. So we did revise our quarterly report because we're simply reporting different data to you now that Visit Newberg is handling tourism and marketing. We're really focusing on our physical space and how we're serving our visitors. So there is formatting. I did ask for our team to include more residual information from the previous year so that you can see a comparative analysis by year to date. So you'll even notice for walk-in visitors, I gave you Qs, quarters 2, 3, and 4 of last year in comparison to Q1. And that's just to help you understand this process. But that brings up another significant point. I forgot to mention this, but I added a new category of reporting for our counselor. And that is, we've actually started a logbook for any walk-in visiting, any calls, any odd conversations that we have that are tourism or visitor related. So you can actually see the services and quality of contact we're providing. This is not something that frankly could be managed by an app or a kiosk or some other remote mobile or primarily media station. The people who contact the Chamber of Commerce are really looking for real person engagement. Their visits last up to 45 minutes per visit, and they're really looking at how do we plan a successive trip, what's different in our area from last time, how do we make it a quality experience. And we also notice an increase in people stopping by the Chamber of Commerce, so how to integrate successfully into our community, either for the possibility of moving here or have just recently moved here. So you'll see our reporting is different this quarter. Thank you for bringing that up.
For the record, this is my first official question. Where is Hancock Commons?
Hancock Commons is at the corner of Garfield and Hancock Street. So if you look at some of the other businesses in the area, we're close to Recipe. We have the gas station behind it, I believe it's Leather's gas station across the road from Northwest Realty, Papa Murphy's, and we're about a block and a half down from the public parking station next to the Downtown Coalition Visit Newberg offices. So that's where we're at.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, Janet, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, next on our agenda, let's see. Item 4B, actually before we get into that, I've got a little bit of housekeeping. So we've got a number of public comments for this particular presentation. I will underscore that it is a presentation, so this isn't an actual hearing. We're not making a decision this evening, so it is for information. So you can help me, though, by organizing the comments. So I've got 3 here that I don't have, whether it's opponent, proponent, or undecided. So if Nick Moraes, which one of the above? Proponent, opponent, or undecided?
Undecided.
Undecided.
Thank you.
All right, what about Sarah Crozier?
Same.
Same, undecided, all right, thank you. And finally, Merrill Kunkel,
I guess I would be a proponent.
proponent. All right, thank you all. All right, and then if you can indulge me, I think we'll start with the staff presentation first, and then we'll get into public comment after that, if that will work.
Paul, it's loading.
I'm Paul Chu, the project manager for the Air Road Improvement Project. And to my right-hand side would be Tony Roos from Kittleson and Associates, who is the city's consultant for this project here. We're presenting the information after going through a series of public outreach. We receive feedbacks, so let's go through these slides, and if you have any questions, you may hold it at the end of it.
Mr. Mayor, to be clear, this is informational only tonight, presenting to you where we're at in the process of this project. We do have the next steps laid out further in the presentation tonight, so we won't be retaining we'll be decisions to some feedback where we're at in the process.
One thing I want to comment is that the slides that you see here has a different order from the one in your digital. The content is essentially the same, but the flow is much better. It will tell a story a little bit more logically. So if you can come along with us, that would be great. All right, this project, Heather Road, is a capital project identified in the city budget and also in the transportation system plan. It is to provide improvements, basically to provide safety for Heather Road from the Highway 99W to the Newberg High School. We have about over 2,000 feet of major collector, and the needs are to improve storm drainage, provide power undergrounding, street lighting, and landscapes. One thing I want to mention is that the north is actually pointing towards your right-hand side, just to give you the orientation of the map here. The question is, why this project? Ellie Road has been identified as one of the critical routes for bicyclists and pedestrians from East 2nd Street on Highway 219 down all the way through Ellie Road, and then crossing Highway 99 to Newberg High School. It's a major collector, and we have needs for safety improvements. It's also for traffic flow. There's some associated storm drainage and flooding issues. We'll talk about those later on. Just to bring you up to speed here, the existing streets, the conditions, we currently have 2 lanes. The width of the travel lane varies from as narrow as about 10 feet in some areas and all the way out. And they are disconnected or incomplete curbs and sidewalks with very little ADA improvement. There are no bike lanes, as you see that there's inadequate kinder strips, and we know that during winter time there are floodings at several locations. And we have this area power, as you can see that also the high pressure sodium streetlights hanging from existing utility poles. The city, we have collected the traffic information through our police department with the speed trawler. Earlier on, when the Newberg High School is still in session, 3,000 average daily traffic. That's the number of traffic on both sides of Adder Road, north and southbound. And the street is posted 25 miles an hour. The 85 percentile is at 30. The 85 percentile by definition is that about 85% of the drivers will be driving at a speed at or below the speed. In this case, it's 30 miles an hour. That means there are about 15% that are going above the 30 miles an hour. And we have speed recorded the maximum at 54, and the 5,400 some vehicles, that is the total of 2 days. So based on those 2-day traffic volume, we have about 8 records showing that they are going at 45 up to about 55 miles an hour. So that is much less than 1% roughly if you do the calculation. And certainly we recognize speed by small numbers, the issues, and we will address that as we keep going. The project to date, we have targeted on the property owners, residents, and the schools. We have also reached out to the CPRD, that's the Chehalis Parks and Recreation District, and all stakeholders about this project. We use various means and trying to communicate the needs and challenges. We have received feedback and have them analyzed by our consultant. We have conducted 2 walking tours and 1 open house. And we'll have more open houses down the road. Way back in July, on the 23rd and 24th, we have walking tours. This is a picture of folks walking along Adder Road. We are listening to comments and input and feedback from them about what are the challenges and what needs to be done. And there was no design at the time, it's just simply outreach and trying to find out the situation.
At that time, we had completed our topographic survey, so we had the existing conditions mapped, so we could walk with neighbors and ask, what did we miss, what do we need to see out here this morning?
Yes, and we have feedback from the walking tours. And basically, they say that sidewalks will be widely supported, and again, safety and traffic calming is high on their list of concerns. And, they also have comments on the land width and some comments on the right-of-way. They pointed out areas where there are drainage problems. Also, they would love to see trees being saved, if at all possible. So on 18th of September, we have the open house. We have it held at the Middle Rush Elementary School, the library. We have about 60 people showing up in the evening. city council and also folks from the Newberg school district. So we listened to them. And we have this comment form that we given out on that day, and they can provide information and feedback. We collected them, analyzed them. These pictures, as you see, the turnout in the open house, that gives you an indication of the attendance. So people have a lot of comments and concerns, so we listen to them. And now I would like to turn this to Tony, and he will take this middle portion for this.
So once we had the survey completed, our team and Paul and the city, we met and had a design shred to come up with ideas for cross sections, and looked at starting with the city's typical street design section for a major collector road. And what that is 36 feet from curb to curb. So there's your curb, there's your other curb. It consists of two 12-foot travel lanes and two 6-foot bicycle lanes. That's your curb width. Landscape strip and a 5-foot sidewalk to get to a 60-foot right of way. After looking at this, we talked to Doug and said, Doug, what can we do to change this and reassign these lanes, change these travel lanes? And Doug, would you like to step in and tell us what the process would be to change the city's typical section?
So Doug Brooks, Community Development Director. So through this process, questions came up about what we could do to modify the cross-section that's in our transportation system plan and in our development code. And so we went back and we looked at the transportation system plan, and it has a table in it. And I need to open my notes. So we got a couple of tables in the TSP. Table 3 deals with the functional classification design standards. And then we have another one's figure 17 on the major collector, which kind of gives us a typical cross-section, which is reflected here in a different type of graphic, but the same information. And then we had what's called table 6, which is in the projects, and there's a project S32, which identifies Elliott Road, and it identifies it as a major collector. So then we went and looked at the development code. And so in the development code, in chapter 15, 505, there is a table, and in that table it lays out all the functional classifications of the roadway. So one of those is a major collector, but it also includes the right-of-way width, the curb to pavement width, the motor vehicle travel lane that you would have. And so those are all columns. And so for this situation, a major collector has a 57 to 80 foot right-of-way. It's got a 36-foot curb to curb, and it's got 2 travel lanes. Staff doesn't have any discretion to change those standards, both in the TSP and the development code require a comprehensive plan text amendment and a development code amendment. What I do have the latitude in the development code is to address issues for median types, striped bike lanes, and on-street parking. So there's actually a footnote in the tables that gives the director the authority to make adjustments there. And so with that, that kind of set our context of what we could do. There's also another piece, which is the design and construction standards, where the city engineer has some latitude to address issues about either 5-foot or 6-foot sidewalks, either curb tight or not curb tight, and some issues at intersections on bike lanes, which will come up in other slides.
So with that conversation in mind, we developed a number of alternatives that we think would address what we heard at the open houses, to address speeding, accessibility, and to install bike lanes on the road to make that connection for a major collector. Alternative 1 is really just taking the bike lanes and making them 2 feet wider, doing a buffered bike lane and taking that width from the travel lane. So you'd end up with a 7-foot buffer bike lane, which would be a 2-foot buffer, a 5-foot bike lane, and then 2 11-foot travel lanes. 11-foot travel lanes roughly matches what you see over here today. Landscape strip and the sidewalk would both be the same, as they would be on the same section. So we'd still utilize the entire 60-foot right of way. Concept 2, very much similar to the previous, but instead of being equal at the same level as the roadway, the cars, what you see in Hillsborough and Portland is a raised bike track, or raised cycle track, we call that, where the bicycle is 4 to 6 inches above the pavement level. It's really kind of a parallel sidewalk. You're still technically 36 feet from curb to curb. Concept 3 is a reassigning of the travel lanes, and this is where Doug gets a little stressed out, of course. It starts to. We take the bike lanes, instead of putting them on the street, we move them next to the sidewalk. And the concept being, where is the level of conflict? 3,000-pound car, 200-pound bicyclist, or 200-pound cyclist next to a 150-pound walker. And roughly the same speeds, or 25 miles an hour and 10 miles an hour. So this puts the bicycles or more vulnerable users further away from the cars. Same 60-foot right of way. Concept 4 is a bit of a hybrid where we do a really large shared use path on the one side of the road or the other, and just a simple sidewalk on the other. So we push all the bicycles to one side of the road. Or the ones that want to use the road would take a travel lane like they would today. And concept 5, this is a reduced width cross section. So we really just push down, take a little bit of meat from every element from the sidewalk. Well, the sidewalk's a minimum 5.5 feet. But we take out the landscapes, reduce the width of the landscape strip. Trees aren't going to be really happy in 4 feet, but they're not totally happy in 5 feet either. Reduces the cycle track or the bike lane down, reduces the travel lanes down to 10 feet, and it's mirror on both sides of the road. So those are the 5 concepts we developed for cross sections. So those would be generally applied, one of those sections would be generically applied through the entire corridor. And then we started looking at each of the intersections, at intersection treatments. We heard that speed was an issue, and it was proven out by the traffic trail that was out there. I won't say a high school kid was doing it, but it happens to align about the same time his classes got out. Circumstantial events, right? So we stood at the high school and we looked towards 99W. And it's all one grade, there's no vertical change. You can see all the way down, it looks like a river and drag strip. And we want to introduce some friction into the roadway. So what this intersection treatment you're seeing here, alternative 1, we call it, is what a standard intersection would look like with the buffered bike lanes carried all the way through the intersection. No friction, the roadway is just what it is. Alternative 2, for the intersection treatment, is a fully curb extension intersection. So we push the curves towards the roadway, and the bicyclists, I apologize, Patrick and Jean, you can't see that laser, but we take the bicyclist that's heading towards the high school, and the orange takes as the transition zone to the purple that is shared bike ped, push them across like a pedestrian here, back, and then off the screen here, they transition back to a buffered bike lane. The same thing happens as you're heading towards 99, off the road, through the driveway, and then back down onto the roadway. So that would be a T intersection that is a curb extension on both sides of the road, reducing the cross-section width to 24 feet of the roadway, bicyclists being behind. Alternative 3 is curb extensions on all 4 corners, and this is the only 4-way intersection we have on the corridor at Hallward. And same principles apply. Bicyclist is separated away from the intersection to a shared, and then back on the road. This would have to get a little bit of work to figure out the bicyclists. Right now, the bicyclists are sharrows on Hallward, so they can maintain that same sharrow philosophy, taking the lane. And then, if you want to turn left from this intersection as a bicyclist, using the sidewalk system, you make a 2-stage left, following the same path as the pedestrian would. If you're an avid bicyclist or a strong and confident bicyclist, you maintain a lane, you take the lane like you would most other times. At the intersection with Willow, It's really a mirror of what we saw at the other end, but it's a hybrid between what we saw at Redwood and Norwood, where we have a curve extension. North is to the right there, so on the west end, it's a curve extension, and on the east side, buffered bike lanes carry through the intersection. Just to show you we have options to go full curve extension or hybrid mix and match. And then at Hawthorne, here we go. This is the curve extension, but once we get past Hawthorne, it feeds in directly into the high school. So our proposal is to continue the separated bicycles through to the high school center lines with what the campus does for bicycles. It gets into the parking lot where we should be going. So we took these options to the open house, and we had a big strip map with all the intersection options, and then cross sections shown, and took feedback from the community, and came up with our conceptual design for the project. And so this is 99W, the former Christmas tree corner, and Panda Express on the upper side of the sheet. So you can see the double white lines is a buffered bike lane, and that carries all the way through. At the intersection of 99, it's still a 3-lane section, through right, dedicated left, and northbound through movement, transitioning to a standard 2-lane section for the corridor. There are 5 properties. As you look at this, the red line is existing property lines, as our surveyors found. There are 5 properties that haven't been developed since the TSB called for this to be a major collector. Most of the other properties have done some sort of development where they have dedicated off the right-of-way up to the 30-foot half street for a total of 6-foot right-of-way. So there's 5. There's 2 non-residential. That would be the Berkshire Hathaway building and the Cedar Apartments. Cedar Terrace. And then 3 on the west side, on the next sheet. So this is the middle section, Redwood, Norwood and Redwood. Carrying through, you can see where the bike transitions down and back up. When we said we heard about flooding issues during the walkabout we did, there's a catch basin right here at this corner that was catching exactly 0 water. Everything was flowing past, and a huge public forum down here. And our surveyors, when we're out there doing our survey, we have to collect where all the survey pipes are, or storm pipes are. And they called me and said, "We can't find this pipe, where does it go?" So we had Public Works go out and help us try to find it. They couldn't find it. And then we heard about the flooding, so Public Works went out and actually fixed the flooding issue. There's a blocked culvert back behind these houses on it. It's been there for a number of years, so the project's already done some good. We fixed that flooding problem. So there's the intersection with Hawthorne, with Hallworth. The 3 properties that we're talking about on the west side, 807, 911, and 1007. And what we've done, after hearing the community, I'm going back a slide here, there's a number of significant trees. At 803, there's a really nice maple tree there, and next to the maple, there's a couple other trees. So we've transitioned the sidewalk to curb height to avoid those trees, minimize the impact of those trees. Our arborists said they're healthy trees, so we want to avoid them if we can. And then we continued that curb height all the way through these properties, avoiding these trees, big trees, and then transition back at the other apartment buildings to get us height into the intersection. And then here's the north end of the project from Willow into the high school. So again, color coding wise for you. Blue is sidewalk, green is landscape strip. Light gray is existing pavement width. Dark gray is where we widen, actually add pavement. Orange is the transition zone for the bicyclists. Purple is shared bike. And the red lines are the existing right-of-way lines that we have today.
Tony, is that based on 60-foot width? What is this design based on?
This design uses the existing 60-foot width.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Based on the public input from the open house and also the site walking tours, look at all these concepts and we recognize the need to have safety for the project and to minimize the impacts to private properties. And we also have comments about using the public fund wisely. So if it's not needed, we don't spend the money. So unless it's necessary. So I will certainly do it that way. And there are a number of cross sections that have pros and cons. Our interest, what we have from the public input, is that they would like to have livability and also safety, and we recognize that. So what I'd like to bring everybody to the level of safety on a human level. So this is not just road improvements. I would like to see that this project, what it will do to us as humans, using it to a point that we would enjoy walking, driving, bicycling, everything in there. And so to make it functional. And so there are certainly a lot of issues and challenges we need to address, and we recognize it. During this public outreach event, there are a number of questions being asked. So I'd like to sort of go it one at a time, questions. One of the questions is why Area Road is a major collector. So it was based on the transportation system plan and the city code. The other critical thing is that we have earlier the traffic data. We have, on average, over 3,000 vehicles in a single day for both north and southbound area route. When we have that many traffic, one of the criteria for major collector is based on that one. And it's also one of the few streets, the north-south, that connects the city. That part of the area. We know that Villa Road and Spring Road are the two major ones connecting north and south. And Area is another one. And it has the signal to allow people much easier to travel to get to their destinations. And it's also a connection for major generators. As I mentioned that we have the pool, the CPRD, the swimming pools. There are people going there, there are people going to schools, and going to businesses, fast food, restaurants, grocery, anything. So this route that people use and will provide efficiency through this traffic movement. The next question is why do we want to have bike lanes? Right now we don't have it. And the federal highways have stated that when at all possible, providing, and that's certainly for streets with higher functional classifications. As such, major collector is one of them. And the TSP also indicated we have average traffic on a daily basis at 3,000 or over. And that is also another significant criteria.
Should note that 3,000 was 2018 counts, we didn't apply any further factors. So easily in 20 years we'll be well over that threshold.
So we just want to provide safety for all these different users of the street by providing something that would be properly and adequately designed for every user. The next question is, why do we have planter streets? So as a driver, as pedestrians, we enjoy them. It gives us a kind of visual cue that there's something there and helps us to have some calming effect as well. Driving through a street with nothing there, you want to get out the street as quickly as possible. So we would probably tend to drive a little faster. There's been some interesting studies on that. Also, it provides some separation between the motorized lane and also the pedestrians, giving some horizontal separation and a little bit more comfortable that way for all users. The next question is, why don't you all provide speed bumps in your design? The transportation system plan does not allow it. The TVFR, that's Road Valley Fire and Rescue, they don't support the speed bumps. However, they are okay with other traffic calming measures, such as curb extensions. And for that reason, we use them certainly and can be used effectively. And so we want to make sure that we provide things so that every users, you and me, people who live there, whoever they are, feel comfortable using this street median.
Speed bumps usually are not supported by fire departments. Unfortunately, it's going to reduce their response time, or increase the response time, I should say, and potentially do damage to the truck if it doesn't reduce or increase the response time. They do approve the traffic calming measures of the curb extensions if we can show that the ladder truck can safely maneuver the corners, and we've done that with these curb extensions.
And there are questions about existing trees. We've done a tree survey. We know what trees are healthy, and we certainly like to keep as many of them as possible. What about flooding? There has been flooding issues, and we are thankful that property owners have shared the information about flooding situations in their front or backyard and things like that. And certainly, we also need to provide adequate storm conveyors, because there's not a whole lot of storm drainage for this road here, so it's necessary to keep the flooding issue checked. What about rights of ways and easements? Because a number of folks are concerned about the right of ways that the city needs for this project. So we have done a right of way survey, and we have filed the record of survey with Yamhill County, showing what the existing right of ways for each property, and that is information that can be available to anybody who asks for it. And we also continue to have meetings with property owners. We want to work with each and every one of them towards mutual goal, and to sort of understand the whole situation.
Today, we've met 4 of the 5 directly impacted owners that are at full 60-foot 3-foot half street. And then the 6th one, we're going to be looking Ben next week.
So we try to address all the questions and things like that to as much as we can.
What we don't know yet is what we need for PGE and underground utilities, like the easement behind the sidewalk. So we don't know exactly the extent of that yet this early in the design process. And corners around intersections, there may be a little, what we call a corner clip here or there, where we're going to get on the edge of the property right at the corner and make a curb return radius for the fire trucks and the turning vehicles. That's information that comes when we get closer to the 60% design stage. We're still at concept right now.
Yeah, the right of ways, when we look at it, there are some concerns about Kinder Street where there should be, so as we saw some of the design concept earlier on, the sidewalk being curb tight, so we are making it as compact as possible with all the improvements. So the Kinder Street, in essence, for those areas would be sort of behind the proposed sidewalk. That way, so it would give as much of the existing land to the property owners. And So we have looked into those, and it's something that we believe is workable, so we just want to mention that. So it's a process that we have to work through, and we also recognize that because of the power undergrounding by PGE, so we may need some public utility easements for that matter. So those are things that we need to be aware of. So based on all this information, what can we do with it? What would be the best option? We look at that and we found that based on the input from public and how they will be utilizing it, and also to serve users. There could be people living in the neighborhood, not necessarily on Area Road, but not far from it, using Area Road. So we recognize the need to have a balanced approach. It's always challenging. And we see that the buffer bike lanes and narrow travel lanes is something that appears to be doable with curb extensions and intersections to discourage speeding situations. Buffer sidewalks with landscape. Based on major collector, there will be no parking, and we'll have improved street lighting. Drainage will certainly be improved. And when homeowners have concern and would like to see a narrower right-of-way under circumstances, special circumstances, we will look into those and see if we can accommodate them. But it's a matter of having the sidewalk next to the curb, and then because typically we will have utilities when they're underground, they usually go into the private street area somewhere there. So without that additional right-of-way, so there is possible the need to have some kind of utility easements behind the sidewalk. So those are the situations that we need to think about. And we recognize that this is a project that would be beneficial, and so there are some things we need to work through. And the next steps will have more meetings with property owners. We will also come back to council in winter 2020 about the right-of-way recommendations. That's probably in sometime in early next year. And we'll have to keep working hard with the homeowners. There will be open house or houses scheduled in the near future. So those are the things that we are looking into. And this one is a photo taken during nighttime. I went out there at about 10:30, trying to understand what is the difference between daytime and nighttime, which could be drastically different. And then it tells me about the street lighting, about what people do on the curbside. I see some parking and things like that. Those are underutilized areas, where right now people just park there. So I just want to mention that. So with that in mind, our design is actually to really make it as beneficial and functional for every groups of people. It's a challenge, and we certainly will take it head on, and so we like to continue working with all stakeholders.
All right, folks, questions? All right, if you all can stick around for a second, we'll, if you're done, go ahead, jump the gun.
Yeah, this will be, again, I'm just coming back to the concept, number one, which we felt that might be the best preferred option. So there's something that we would like to focus on. And so any questions or comments?
And again, the next 3 slides are repeated conceptual design, so if somebody has a question, you want to see that.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so we got a public comment and petition about this, and their suggestion, I understand, is not possible because they wanted to get rid of the landscape over on the, what would that be, the west side, or to the right. So I understand that that's not possible, but I am wondering if there's any way that we could just, the request here is just to reduce the total right-of-way. And so in an earlier example, there was like a 4-foot landscape rather than a 6-foot landscape, and a 10-foot travel lane rather than an 11-foot travel lane. And so I'm just wondering if we could work on, you know, like this basic concept, but then just narrowing it up a little bit, because that's what I know that that's not maybe what you're hearing in the public, in your going around, but that's what we're getting a lot of here, so I didn't know if that was possible.
So what do you, then we go to the third one, second one. So listening to Mr. Rux, doing a full reduction of the right-of-way cross-section, would go through an entire comp plan, zoning, development code change that we don't know would result in allowing it anyways. Did I misspeak that?
Yeah, this is Doug Rux again. So the guidance I provided at the start of this project is that our transportation system plan and our development code requires a minimum width of the right-of-way of 60 feet. The maximum is, well, I should say 57 feet. The maximum is 80 feet. It requires a 36-foot curb to curb, and it just says 2 travel lanes. So there's some flexibility in the travel lane width. So the challenge gets to, if you were trying to narrow the right-of-way up, is that you would have to come back and do a TSP amendment and a development code amendment. It's a process to go through. It has to make an application. It could be city council chooses to initiate it. It could be that you ask property owners to initiate it. Either one, that comes with a cost, and so we weren't getting down to that level. But there's a process. We also have to notify the states. We got to notify DLCD, and then ODOT gets notified. And there's a process again for people to comment. So because the code doesn't give me the flexibility to say, oh, you can only do a 55-foot right-of-way. The least I can go down to is a 57. So you have to change the standards to do that. So in going through these alternatives and sitting down with Tony and Paul and Karen and so forth, is looking at how can we come up with different iterations of things within that 60 feet, 57 feet, in order to get the bike lanes, the landscape strip, the travel lanes, and so forth. So that's what these different concepts we're trying to represent. Staff did not come up with one that says, oh, let's go to 50 feet. But that's part of the discussion this evening.
Sure.
So I'm a little bit confused because alternative 5 has a right-of-way of 50 feet.
We did develop one that shows what that could look like.
What that could look like, but that we still have to go through that process.
Correct.
Thank you. That's why I was getting.
But what I want to point out is, use 901 here. Again, dark gray is where we're adding pavement width, but by going to a curb-type cross-section, we've reduced down 5.5 feet already. So now we're 54.5 by getting rid of the plan strip and reducing down so you got curb, a curb-type sidewalk. We have a curb-type sidewalk at 6 feet, so it's 5. It's a pedestrian discomfort.
Yeah, basically, we just moved the planter strip to behind the sidewalk, and therefore make it more compact that way. And so,
Just
saying
in
that.
that area?
Correct. We want to maintain the planter strip. One of the features of the planter strip, by going vertical elements right next to the roadway, it introduces another visual element to drivers of side friction, that they're not going to want to be inclined to drive 54 miles an hour by seeing that tree right next to the window. The other, so that's why we don't want to do the entire corridor.
Got it. Thank you.
So in that section at 901, then, are you saying that that is less than 60 feet then? In that
The width of the road would be less than, from back sidewalk to back sidewalk width would be less than 60 feet in that section.
Is it 57 feet?
55.
Okay. And then how, does that then trigger anything that we have to do through the TSP?
It requires us to give a design exception, Torrington approved to a curb type, and the justification for the curb type is the saving of the bigger trees that are really well established.
Okay. Well, maybe now's a good time to ask this. So say there was the process, and whoever initiates it, city council initiates it, the residents initiate it. What, if we were to shrink it to 50 feet, as was requested by the petitioners, what would the impact be in terms of safety and in terms of the things that you are attempting to accomplish with 60 feet?
One thing I want to mention, if we move it to the curb type, then the sidewalk width needs to be at least 6 feet wide instead of 5 feet. And that gives a little bit of width from the curb and the travel lane. So that is the sort of 1 foot additional staying away from the curb situation. And that will give sort of from the back of sidewalk, maybe half a foot or a foot from the back of sidewalk to the center of area road. That would be the 25 feet.
Right, I see, right, I see the model, but what's the, what is the?
So it depends on where you take that distance from, that you mentioned.
Okay.
To get down to 50 feet, there's a number of options we could go. We could curb tight for both sides of the sidewalk and reduce the lane width down to 11 feet and the bicycle lane down from 7 to 5 and skinny everything up. We could keep the travel lanes at 12 feet and reduce everything else. So it's really a balance of how do we get there. From a safety standpoint, narrow lanes promote people to go slow. Not a huge freight route out here. We're worried about the biggest thing we see is the garbage trucks and the school buses that probably feed sports events going into the high school. And the occasional, most of the sports buses going into the high school.
One thing I also want to mention that there has been observation at different high school events that there are a lot of folks from the high school will simply be walking on the road or even sort of in a big crowd and things like that. So I was informed of that and I was told that there are actually photographs of them. So we recognize all this stuff in here. So what's the best way to provide safety for every user? So it is something we need to recognize.
The other issue by going to a smaller section in a one-off situation is potentially sets the precedent up for the next development that's going to come in. Say you've got a major collector and you approve a 50-foot section in your own project, why would you approve it for our development?
This is Doug again. So there's another provision, I'm talking with Tony and Paul about this. There's a modification section in our transportation, 15.505. And so one of the things to take into consideration for a modification is you got to look at the topographic constraints. So when we looked at this area, it's relatively flat, it slopes from north to south, basically from high school down to 99. We don't have any steep hillsides in this project area. The other one is looking at lot shape and or that lot configuration. So what we've currently got is a road that goes from Portland Road that goes to the high schools, straight shot through there, and you've got rectilinear lots that go east and west off of Elliott. So there's not any really odd shaped parcel that you're trying to work around in this situation. The other one is about modifications for trees and other natural features. And so earlier on, Paul and Tony were talking about down at 99 Elliott, the large tree, some other large trees, and trying to adjust the right-of-way in those locations so that we can preserve those bigger natural features that are out there. The last one, which doesn't apply in this situation, is the planned unit development. We're not proposing any PUD process.
Okay, but these other saving trees and this you can do through a design modification?
Yes.
Okay, got it. John, Patrick.
Good evening. Great report, thank you. Hey, now it is. Thanks. So the first question I had was, how can you guys explain to me, and whether this is Doug or city staff, where this landed on the priority and why this project's being done now in comparison to other projects in the community? I've gotten that question a lot and I didn't know how to answer it. Is this just part of the schedule, or was this brought to, was there money that came that was special for this project? How did it come to be prioritized now?
This is Jay Harris. I was a former city engineer when some of this was going on. So Elliott Road was actually one of my #1 projects like 7 years ago. And the problem we had was in the transportation system plan, the SDC, system development charge eligible, it wasn't a system development charge eligible roadway. Villa was second. Villa was STC eligible. We had money available. That's how it went first. Some of this is about safety, or the majority of it is about safety. Villa, prior to construction, was a very dangerous roadway for pedestrians and bicyclists. Elliott, in my mind, was hired just because of the users of the high school and a lot of people going in and out of there. But Villa was close because you had the railroad crossing, tight widths and that sort of thing. So you fast forward to the transportation system plan update that Doug was involved with, and it was on the system development charge eligibility list, and that funding source is now available for this roadway with some gas tax funds to complete it. And then we have a 5-year capital improvement plan that we do for stormwater, water, wastewater, and transportation. One of the next projects is Main Street, Mountain View, and the Big Dip. Doug, help me out, we had one more. The Crestview Drive, which is happening. Main and Elliott. Yeah, Main and Illinois, I corrected. That's that real busy intersection out of 240 there. So we're trying to get the safety projects done first, out of the way. I don't know if you've walked along Mountain View Drive or attempted to down through the dip there. We've been waiting for the developer to come in and do their part there, the Springbrook Master Plan. They're responsible to do that roadway. That's why that's been sort of been on hold. But we're trying to get these safety projects pushed out. Did that answer your question?
It did, thank you.
Okay, good.
And just a statement, I went to high school at Newberg High School, and that road really isn't any different from when I graduated high school 20 years ago. The other thing I would ask staff, and this is just a general comment, is that when you send us presentations like this, especially with different alternatives, if there is one that is like, we have to change the comp plan, and we have to do this, we have to jump through a bunch of hoops to get it down to 50 feet, having a note in there saying that would be great, especially on a project like this where we're receiving phone calls, because people are calling me saying, I prefer option 5, and I read my packet and I went, well, okay, sounds great, because there's no real note in here saying that those major transportation system update, comp plan update, development code update, had I known that stuff going in, I could have had better outreach to the public when they're calling me. So in the future, when we put those type of examples in the packet, if we could just note, here are the things that have to happen to make this alternative viable, that would really help us, when we're fielding those phone calls when people get the packet. So, thank you.
All right, and one other, we mentioned precedent potentially earlier. It'd probably be interesting to know if there are major collectors that have not met this standard recently. If we've already got a precedent, I'd be interested to know. So not for now, but for sometime in the future, but the precedent does come out. All right, any other questions at the moment? Okay. All right, again, folks, this is a presentation, but let's go ahead and get some public comment. And I guess I'll randomly start with the undecideds, actually. And you all will be here for a couple minutes in case there's more questions. Okay, thanks so much. Okay. Well, Sarah Crozier, you've been randomly selected to go first.
The funny thing was I said, I'll go last.
Oh. All right, so you have 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Is this close enough?
Yep.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Crozier. I've been a resident of Newberg for, well, a long time. I was technically born here. We moved away, and now I've lived here for 10 years. I graduated from George Fox. My family's lived here for generations prior to that. My great-grandparents were one of the first people, one of the first students to attend the Springbrook School. They dairy farmed here for many years, so my heart is here. My family, and you've probably heard, I am by marriage related to the DeHaunts, so you receive lots of emails from Dan. And so we spend many a days at 807 Elliott. A lot of my last 15 years of my married life, every Christmas has been spent at that home. My hairdresser is around the corner, so I spend a lot of time on Elliott. I currently live on Villa Road, so as I'm explaining this to you, you'll kind of get some context. I'm here this evening to urge thoughtfulness when we plan to do things as a city. One, from a resident that is concerned about costs. So my two main concerns as we go over this. Number one is that a wider road really necessarily safer, and I'm sure your engineers will talk a lot, but I lived for nearly a year on the Hawthorne apartments that are right behind the high school. Like, I got to hear the high school. And I found that traffic was never so excessive. At the time, I only had 2 children, I now have 6. We had 1 car, and I regularly strolled to Fred Meyer's. I never felt unsafe on the road. I never felt that I was going to be run over, even during high school times. I never felt that I couldn't walk out and pull in or out. When we're there at Christmas, the same thing. Well, I think that I can agree that sidewalks would have been a great idea, and still can agree that sidewalks can be a great idea. I'm not certain, and I don't quite understand why we need to have 2 sets of huge bike lanes on that 2,400 square feet. And I'm sure you guys are going to have lots of other meetings, so I'm undecided, because I think there's some great parts to this project, but I just can't understand this whole wide concept. Currently, I live on Villa, and let me tell you what your safety has done to Villa. We have walked Villa for years to get to the swimming pool, and when it was unsafe for pedestrians, people actually drove slower. Right now, the traffic on Villa, oh, holy night. They drive like it's a freaking speedway. They go around that corner now because it's all nice and smooth and wide. Like, yeah, horrible, guys. I walk it almost every day, Tuesdays and Thursdays, to get to swimming lessons with my kids. And it's way, way, way faster. The wider lanes make people feel safe to just buzz. So I'm not convinced that wider lanes on Elliott are going to slow down our high school students. I'm just not. The second point I'd like to make is that the price of this small 2,400 square foot, or 2,400 feet of pavement is exorbitant, in my personal opinion. Like 3.5 million. I can't read all the documents, and I'm flipping through trying to get to like a final price count, and it's huge. And so, you know, as a long-term resident, I live on the end of Villa where Mountain View meets. And my children, one of them now attends the middle school, and I can't let him walk. We aren't within bus range because of that dip that someone mentioned. It's a horrible place, and that, you know, totally dangerous. Their places are, my other children go to Edwards Elementary and attend the dual immersion program. If you have not been to Edwards during school pickup, that is a nightmare of a place. Like, the other places would be Meridian. When are we going to pave it? Like, it's like driving on like cart. So those kind of areas, I'm just wondering like why we picked 2,400 feet of Elliott to spend $3.5 million. When there are some other places as a city resident that I think our impact would be better. Elliott Road exits into the senior parking lot. So I asked, one of my seniors works in I run a small child care, and I have a senior that works for us, and she comes at 3 o'clock after school. And so I said, hey, like, tell me about getting out your car and getting here on time. And she's like, you know, it's not really that big of, you know, pull out a senior parking lot. The other entrance, I don't know how many buses go in that senior parking lot entrance, and that's not for me to answer. I think they use the new reconstructed entrance on the other side, but that's a bus issue question. Other questions that I have is, why do we need bike lanes on both sides? Will we be giving ample notice of future meetings so that we can make arrangements to be there, not last minute or like barely enough time to get there? No street parking, is that reasonable for residents? I'll tell you, our Christmas party will be, not that that's of simple importance, but as family and livability, if you have no street parking for your residents on an entire street, there's an apartment complex that I know always parks all at night, all the way up that road, because there's not enough parking in the complex that's up closer towards Panda Express. So, I know that the engineers have spoken about numbers, and I realize that it's never an easy decision. But overall, I think that less cost is always more beneficial, and it's always more beneficial if we work together to come up with a plan that everyone's happy with. So, thank you.
Sir, thank you. All right, Nick Moraes, please.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Nick Moraes. I'm a resident in District 5. I have been asked to come down here on behalf of the Crockett's. They apologize they were not able to be here tonight. They wanted to, but they have given me a statement to read for them, so I'll do that now. Dear City Council, we appreciate your time in hearing our comment through Nick, as we are unable to attend tonight. As you have seen in our petition, we have put forth with many signatures from those living on or off of Elliott Road, we are requesting that the city consider a maximum road width of 50 feet. We feel that the city can accomplish all that they want in a much more fiscally responsible manner and meet most of the residents' wishes within a 50-foot row versus a 60-foot row the city staff has been recommending. Just because the city owns a 60-foot right-of-way along much of the road does not mean using every last inch of it is the best interest of those living along the road and in the best interest fiscally of the city. Alternatives can be created using different elements from some of the options the city has shown that can benefit everyone. I have submitted an alternative that fits within a 50-foot row that includes buffered bike lanes, even though it is highly debatable that bike lanes are necessary. This also includes sidewalks on both sides of the road while maintaining the lane widths the same as they are now. Keeping the road lanes at 10 feet will help alleviate the concern that many have that a 11 or 12-foot lane will encourage faster drivers. We have also requested that there be no green space on the west side of the road between 99W and Haworth Road to respect the current homeowners and be less disruptive to the current yards and driveways. We have had a very positive response to these suggestions as we spoke with our neighbors about this alternative. We hope that if the city council or staff have questions about this, they will reach out to us. And thank you for your time, Wes and Brandy Crockett. And if I may give my 2 cents on it, I've been talking with pretty much all the residents on Elliott Road for a few months now. There was about 5 different households that reached out to me when this kind of hit the public's eye, and they asked me to come over and talk with them and see what their options are and all that kind of stuff. It's been a really fun experience to listen to them, listen to their concerns. One thing is I've been at all the public outreach and all that stuff, and every single time we're there, people do not want the road widened, and that's been very clear from the outset. So a 60-foot right-of-way to be brought forth to you, and obviously I understand this is just an informational meeting, but just the fact that that is presented as the #1 choice right now, it really discourages me that the voice of the people that live there that will be directly impacted have not been heard to the point that they need to be. I do really want to thank Paul and Tony. They've been wonderful. They've answered question after question. I'm sure they're sick of hearing from us, but they've been great. But I would like to see them incorporate more of what the public's concerns are and what the public wants. Also, I understand the 50-foot road. It's tough. You're going to have to work at it, and it's fully understandable. The residents of Elliott Road fully understand that, but it's doable. And if I can almost positively say that if it's not initiated at this council, it will be initiated at the resident level, because I've been told that. I'm just relaying the information for you. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents. I hope you can really reach out to all these residents. They're really wanting feedback from you guys. A lot of them feel that they're not being heard. I'm not saying that they're not, but I'm just saying they feel like they're not being heard and their concerns aren't being addressed as well as they need to be at this point. Last final thought, I'm not on Elliott Road. Elizabeth, I'm sad to see that you're leaving, but thank you for serving on the council, and I hope the council can find a replacement, a good one. Let's go. And Gene, welcome to the party, man. Enjoy the next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. All right, Mr. Robert Suppy, please.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Robert Sunday. I'd like to address two different issues regarding the LA Road project. The first has to do with the ongoing problem of inaccurate cost estimates. The second has to do with the selection between the alternatives and the impact on the property owners of LA Road. In the March 2018 CIP that was presented to the council in April of 2018, this project had an estimated cost of $1.85 million. That amount increased by almost double in less than 14 months when it was included in the resolution in May of this year. I'm not in a position to evaluate whether $3.5 million is an appropriate cost for this project. I do think, though, that the council should be concerned about having made decisions about the transportation system plan based on numbers that are so inaccurate. This is not the first time I've raised this issue. When the TSP was revised in 2016, the estimated cost for a number of projects increased dramatically, some by as much as a factor of 9. These were not insignificant amounts. One project went from an estimated $238,000 to over $2.1 million. Another went from $270,000 to almost $1.7 million. These are two of many examples. In a meeting separate from the Planning Commission, staff attempted to explain reasons for the changes. The frequent answer was that the prior staff had simply done a very poor job of estimating project costs. While the project before you tonight is not as bad as the examples I've given, I think that it's significant enough that it should get your attention. I should note that when I raised these issues to the Planning Commission in 2016, the Commission chose not to hear the responses from the staff. Responses were passed along to the Council, but there was little or no discussion of the matter. I hope that the present Council will choose to be more fiscally responsible and will insist on better estimates. Does it concern you that you are asked to make important decisions for the city with such inaccurate information, or will you dismiss it without concern as has been done in the past? The second issue I'd like to address tonight has to do with the impact on the property owners along Elliott Road and how that can be minimized while maintaining the goals of the project. I suggest that you take careful note of some of the feedback that staff cited during the presentation. You are not asked to make a decision tonight, but as indicated in the presentation, staff already has by recommending alternative 1. I think alternative 5 needs to be given more consideration. A narrower travel lane, which would be the standard if this were a minor collector, should help with the concerns raised about speed control as well as reduced pavement. The narrower bike lane is still a half-foot wider than listed in the Newberg code for a bike lane in a major collector. The sidewalk is still wider than the code standard of 5 feet. The planter strip is 4 foot in width, which should provide a reasonable buffer between the bike lane and the sidewalk. The end result of these changes is that the right-of-way is 10 feet narrower, which will result in numerous benefits. There will be less private property impacted by the project, which should make it more acceptable to the property owners, and also reduce costs to the city. The public interest regarding reduced pavement, right-of-way, and speed control noted by staff in the open house would have some resolution by alternative 5. I should note that my references to code came from section 15, appendix A, figure 22. It appears from Doug Ruck's comment that these figures may not be consistent with other parts of the code, though they are listed within the code. If my numbers are inaccurate, then I apologize for trusting what's published by the city's website. You have been told that the travel lane widths cannot be changed by the director. Newberg Code 15505-030G2 states that travel lanes shall have a minimum width of 12 feet, yet alternative 1 has a width of 11 feet. Apparently it can be changed. Yes, the process to change the different documents to allow the cross-section requires some very significant changes. Maybe this is just the time to do it. It was, sorry, I'm reading my handwriting. It was mentioned that allowing a 50-foot right-of-way may result in developers expecting the same in the future. For one, this can be written in code such that it requires special approval to limit such issues. Secondly, look at the cross-section in alternative 5. Is 50-foot right-of-way such a bad idea? I urge you to look carefully at alternative 5 and to encourage staff to initiate the process to use it in further planning for this improvement. Secondly, I also urge the council to hold staff accountable for more accurate estimates on projects. Thank you. I made it.
We'll give you 10 seconds for your next testimony. That's not your hair.
Mr. Mayor.
Sorry,
I
yes, sir.
have a question for Mr. Stewart.
Certainly.
During the budget process this last time, did you or did you not testify that we were going to have a larger cash carryover than what staff was recommending?
I did.
And
And in fact, it turned out to be substantial.
thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
All right, moving on to the proponents. Meryl Kunkel, please.
Hello, Council, Mr. Mayor. So I live off of Redwood Court, which is adjacent to Elliott. It's one of the cul-de-sacs, the one that had, as Paul was talking about, significant flooding because of a culvert that was blocked. I wanted to just speak on a few things in my support of the Elliott Road project. I know a few people have brought up the topic of bike lanes and the fact that there are not a lot of bikers in Newberg. I would suggest that's because there is no bike infrastructure. I would appreciate bike infrastructure. My daughter rides her bike to school, and I know this is just one road, but the more we can put it in place as we're developing, the better. I personally feel like alternative 5 might be the best, well not 5, what was it, 3, it was 3, where you separate the bike lane and the pedestrians with the landscape, because that would not give the effect of increasing the roadway, as others have suggested would be an issue, and would make cars drive faster, and it's, I think, would be safer to have our bikers and our pedestrians with a bit of a buffer between them with some landscape. I would just say that while I was driving here to this meeting, there was a person walking in the opposite direction on the road, no sidewalk, no lighting, as I was driving, and I was like, whoa, if that isn't a clear indication that this needs to happen, I don't know what is. So definitely in support of this, and definitely appreciate the inclusion of bike lanes for safety, as well as the landscaping because of bioswales and trees for carbon sequestration. That's all awesome. And sorry, my mind is a little scattered this night. But I think that's it. I guess, yeah, those are most of my thoughts.
All right, thank you so much. All right, Nick Anderson, please.
I was just if I get her tied.
Oh, yeah, what? I didn't see how much you have left. I didn't catch it.
My name is Nick Anderson. I've lived in Newberg since 2012. My first home is on 1004 Elliott Road. A little bit about myself. I'm an 8-year veteran of the United States military. I graduated in 2000. In 2002, August of 2001, a month before 9/11, I enlisted. Unbeknownst to me, that kind of changed everything from what I thought I was getting into. I spent 3 years in Alaska. I came back. In my last remaining years, I went to school. I got my degree in law enforcement, so I have an associate's in that. In 2008, I was deployed to Iraq, and upon completion of that, I came back with my world unturned because I came back as a disabled veteran. So for the schooling that I went to, that all went away. One of the fortunate things that happened to me, I found an outstanding company, which you probably see the shirt that I'm wearing right now within ADEC. But I want to talk to you about where I live and all that stuff. Elliott Road is a disaster. Some might say that it's a quiet road, it's peaceful. It's not. Over 3,000 vehicles drive on that road a day. I do believe that the city is underestimating the amount amount of the speeders that are on that road. I am constantly out there with the high school kids and with other people that are revving their engines. I live just a few, maybe 50 feet or more from the stoplight. Routinely, people are putting on their brakes. When it's wet out especially, they like to peel out on Hallwork or Haywork, however you want to pronounce it, on our road. I have 4 young kids, and I'll tell you right now, 54 miles an hour on a public road that is for 25 miles an hour is unacceptable. Realistically, that should be a 20-mile-an-hour road because it is one of the main roads to the high school. I know that the high school, there's 3 entrances to the high school. Unfortunately, the high school tends to shut one of the accesses off, so that you only have 2 main accesses to that. In regards of the Starbucks and Panda Express, that area was already a commercial area at one point. There was some commercial properties there. I know that the traffic has increased with those 2 properties. I would suggest, though, that the suggestion for position number 3, with the separation of, if you are going to put in bike lanes and the sidewalks, there needs to be that separation. Because I will tell you right now, if I'm a 17-year-old high school kid and I'm coming out from school and I've got my car lane and then I've got another 5 feet of bike lane, that's an open way. And what you'll have is if you look at position 3, that takes away the argument of wide roads. There needs to be sidewalks on both sides of the road. There are more kids that will walk. I don't know why they do not walk on the sidewalk, but they walk on the other side of the road where there's no sidewalks. I have a neighbor who actually put up thorny bushes to avert kids from walking on there. It did not work. Unfortunately, he moved away, and now we have new people that have moved in. It's the same deal with that. What I would like to finish with this is that whatever you guys decide, keep this in mind, that 17% of the citizens of Newberg live under the poverty line. I have come to the opinion that my family, we fall in that 17%. We are basically 3 or 4 projects away from not being able to live in this community. It's $20 here, $50 there, for whatever type of budgets that you guys want to do. But we're right now, at our threshold right now, is that if we go over $150 in new projects, we cannot afford our house. Because I'm the only one right now that is working. And it's a family of 6. So I just want you guys to keep this in mind. Whatever you guys decide, keep it in budget. Also keep it safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nick. Thank you for your service as well.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, Roy Gathercole, please.
Yeah, move the chair first.
Can you hear me? That looks up. I've been an advocate, strong advocate for accessibility in Newberg for quite some time. In fact, the first time that I approached a city official in Newberg about this particular road, Elliott, was in 1976. Okay, I was a student at George Fox College, and it was amazing to me that any civilized place in the face of the planet would have a main road going from the signal lot, from the signal on 99 to the high school, and no sidewalk. There's no contiguous sidewalk. Right now, you cannot walk from the high school to 99 without crossing the street, without a crosswalk. Or else you're walking on the street. Now, I'm using a wheelchair now. And that has really opened my eyes to some of the limitations, to the importance of having that structure in place. I can't move to the left or the right. I can't take a step to sidestep something that's coming. I am really vulnerable. In order for me to go to 99 down Elliott, I have to cross Elliott in the middle of the block. Because the sidewalk on one side only goes down part of the way, and the sidewalk on the other side only goes down part of the way. Okay? Now, my point is that this has been an intolerable situation for 40 years. I'm tired of waiting. I'm tired for the 2005 ADA Plan Committee. I'm tired for the 2015 round of testimony. Okay, here we are. This sidewalk's going to get built, one way or another. It'll get built the nice way, or not the nice way, but it's going to be built. And I want everyone to hear that this is not an opportunity to drag something on, to delay it, to knock it down on the priority list once again, because some kid is going to die on that road. And I don't know why it hasn't happened more frequently, but you've got, okay, you know that. The other second point I want to make really quickly is that if you build the sidewalks, people will use them. Don't make decisions on where to put sidewalks based on what people are already doing. The point of having a transportation plan is to arrange it so that people can get to the places they need to go. Starting in the 2005 transportation plan, or ADA pedestrian bicycle plan, we designed critical routes that would connect the neighborhoods in Newberg to the major destinations, shopping, city hall, the library, etc. This is one of those routes. And if there is an interruption, if I don't happen to be as foolhardy, okay, I'm not going to go. I'm going to stay home. There are probably, the estimate is, about 1,000 people in Newberg who have a major disability in movement. 1,000 people. Now, do you see 1,000 people walking around? No, because they're staying at home, because they're scared. It's not safe for them to go out. We need to get off and do these projects. Okay? No more bumping down the list. It's got to happen. I can be more calm than that.
No, that was good. It's all good. Thank you, Roy. All right, let's, actually, one other mention, actually, we did receive 4 written comments, Brandon Crockett on 11/16, Jerry Aviolo on 11/16, Evie DeHaan on 11/17, and Amanda Reeve on 11/16. And they're all included in the packets. Any other comments, Paul or folks? Do you need anything else from us, or was that it at the moment?
I think that was it.
That's it? Okay. Any other comments? Okay. Let's take a 5-minute break. Sorry, yeah. Sorry, Gene.
I just wanted to say, as the new representative, this is my neighborhood, and I'm very glad to get involved in this project. My wife and I, as some of you may have noticed, do a lot of walking, and basically all of District 5 we've covered, except the very unpleasant spots like this. So I just appreciate the work that citizens and staff and contractors and those of you so far put into this, because I really look forward to walking up and down that road constantly. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments, folks? All right. Let's.
I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. Okay.
I just like to point out that I do get frequent updates with Paul. I do keep contact with him, so I don't feel that I'm neglected or anything like that. So if there are issues that arise up of any potential things that have gone on, I feel confident that I can actually contact him and he can come and contact me back in a timely manner and tell me if these things are accurate or not.
Thank you very much.
Go, Paul.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Just one other comment I'd like to make to a comment that was made earlier, and that has to do with the fact that, why would staff and the consultants present something that shows 60 feet? As they stated, as was stated, that is the standard, right? That's the standard for this type of a roadway. If we're going to make a change to that, there is a process to do so. So I just wanted to make sure that we understood that. Okay? All right, let's take a 5-minute break and then we will be back here. All right, we're back in this session. All right, Patrick, let's go. Do you have something there for us?
Yeah, I do. I'd like at the December 2nd meeting to do executive session under 192.610, subsection 2, subsection I, to review and evaluate the employment related performance of a public officer
Okay.
for the city.
All right, do we have a second? We've got a second. Denise with a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, hearing none, motion passes. All right, so that's on the December 2nd calendar. More information to follow on that. All right, let's move into new business. Item 8A, resolution 2019-3619. Yes, sir.
Did you mean the December 9th calendar?
December 9th.
Oh, 9th, sorry.
9th. Yes, sir. Thank you kindly. December 9th.
Too many numbers.
Consent calendar.
Still
Sure.
going in order.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
You have 3 public officers. Are you going to tell me which one for the motion, or no?
City attorney.
City attorney.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. And we will do all the proper notification and all else that we have to do for that in advance. Correct? Okay. All right, yes, thank you. Consent calendar.
I would like to make a motion to adopt the consent calendar.
Thank you very much.
Second.
Second, please be with a second. Your consent, you're seconding your own departure. I know what, aren't you? It's on the consent calendar.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there it is. Okay, but it's on the record. It's on the record now. All right, we have a motion. Any further discussion on the consent calendar?
Call the question.
There it is. The question has been called for. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, the consent calendar passes. Resolution 2019-3619, and this is resolution approving the updated 2019 Newberg Economic Development Strategy. Mr. Rose.
Sorry, Deb.
I can't follow the instructions.
Yeah, the arrow's got worn off. I need to paint something on there.
All right, Doug Brooks, Community Development Director. So we're here tonight because we have updated our Newberg Economic Development Strategy, acronym NEDS. So this is the 2019 update. So originally, we did this back in 2016, so some of you may remember we spent a year working with our partners, and I will get to that later, to put together a strategy, an economic strategy for the community, brought that to the council in April and got approved. We just completed the 2019 A Newberg, the Community Visioning Program, and one of the topic areas was economic development. So the group had come back together. We meet every month anyway, but we came back together and said, okay, now let's incorporate new information that came out of the A Newberg program and integrate that in with the work that we've done in the past. There were things that we've done in the past that we either completed or were not high enough of importance that kind of fell away. So this is the new updated version. So our partners, Shakehaven Valley Chamber of Commerce, Downtown Coalition, Visit Newberg, SEDCOR, Newberg Public Schools is new. We've actually got one thing identified in there, and there's actually some other things that are related back
two activities that the chamber is working on. Pacific Crest Real Estate Advisors there on the real estate side, and of course the city. In the old version, we had 4 pillars of activity. The new one, we have 5. So the new one that was added was downtown Newberg. So there were a lot of things that used to be in the commercial sector. Kind of recall we cast a wide net when we did this back in 2015, 2016. Now with the update and name Newberg, we were able to move things out of the commercial sector and move them into their own topic category, which is directly what came out of the vision program. So in the industrial, really the goal here is to enhance development capabilities and opportunities. Commercial, again, enhance those commercial development capabilities and opportunities. Under the business development and workforce, similar to where we were at back in 2016, Premier Business and Workforce Development Program. So in this one, the city is by and large leading the industrial. There's a mix of parties between the chamber, downtown coalition, and the city on the commercial. By and large, the chamber is the one who's advancing all of the activities on business development and workforce. Downtown Newberg, if you look in your packet, that's primarily the city. There are a few pieces for the chamber that are also integrated in that, and there's coordination with the downtown coalition. There's a lot of stuff in there about parking. We're hearing more and more about parking in the downtown area. So Molly Olson and I are having conversations on that. And then with tourism, of course, we had to change. We created Visit Newberg, so ad hoc committee no longer exists. Staff is working on that. That's transferred over under contract to Visit Newberg, and so we did some reworking on that as well. But again, it's creating that regional, national, and international tourist destination opportunities. The document is skinnier than it was in 2015. I didn't bring the comparison, but 5 strategies in industrial 3 and commercial 8. And you see that's our largest workforce. Workforce is a big issue. Downtown we've got 7, and tourism we've got 4. So think this, we've got the topic, we've got the goals, we've got the strategies, and we've got the actions. It's all listed out in your packet. So we've got 25 actions in industrial, 15 in commercial, 35 business development, workforce, 34 downtown. Again, a lot of those are related to things like urban renewal and parking, and then tourism and hospitality as again. The group sat and discussed what would be the priorities in one of our meetings. I kind of provided the challenge, give me your top 2 or 3 over the course of the first year, so that was a lively 2-hour discussion. What we ended up with is effectively 4 in the industrial, and those are dealing with retention activities, kind of the supply chain, how do we help the businesses that we have here. The urban renewal is one that came out. The commercial is updating the inventory of vacant and underutilized sites, and that really kind of rests more on the city, and we will do that as part of the economic opportunities analysis, so we knew we were definitely going to be working on that over the course of the next year. The business development side, regional entrepreneurs network, skill development programs, again, skill development programming, and this ties back to the K through 12 and businesses in town. Downtown, in urban renewal, we're working on that, the vertical housing program, and collecting parking data. So that ties into conversations we've had with the Downtown Coalition. Tourism, expand our regional, national, international attractions, bring visitors to town. And then the one we've talked about for a number of years is recruiting that mid-tier hotel, which is sort of add to the hotel rooms that we have there. Actions that have taken place before we got to council. So the chamber board voted to support this update. The downtown coalition board voted to support the update. The Newberg board voted to support the update. We're still coordinating with the school districts, so we need to get to them to get from the school board. So the recommendation is to adopt resolution 2019-3619.
Questions, folks? There it is. Questions? Anyone? No? All right. So,
Actually,
there we go.
sorry. So I had emailed Doug and I asked, because I was reading this, what the CVIA was, because I guess I'm not cool and didn't know what that was. So, and he answered, and I was wondering if anybody else was wondering what the CVIA was on the cool chart he had in there. You want to tell us?
Shahado Valley Innovation Accelerator was an outgrowth of the America's Best Community Program. It was identified in 2016 economic strategy as we call it a startup for startups. So I believe right now we've got 10 to 12 startups that are working out of the accelerator in different arenas, technology-based, who are working with individuals that have come out of incarceration programs. Fidgetech was one of the early tenants in the facility. So Shahado Park and Recreation District has graciously allowed us to use a part of their facility out on Elliott Road. There is a board of advisors for the accelerator. It's actually a subset of the chamber and their programs. And Jan was telling me that there's some good news that are coming out about being able to create a foundation, 501c3, out of the chamber to be able to slide the accelerator underneath that, which provides different opportunities to go out and seek grants and so forth. So it's a startup for startups. We've been kind of mentored by PI and TIAO and different, I'm going to give you a bunch of acronyms, but I don't want to say them all. Different organizations that are out there to help us. How do we help our new startup companies, our new entrepreneurs? We're engaged with Launchpad Valley. Again, dealing with entrepreneurs, we're connected with the Oregon Entrepreneurs Network through the accelerator for angel funding, and there's a meeting tomorrow on that. So lots of different things that are going on in connection between the accelerator, the chamber, and
So I just wanted to point out, that's one acronym on that table. And it involves so many partners across the city to, we got the park district, we got the chamber, we got the city, we got, I'm sure PCC is involved in some way, ancillary or otherwise. And, I look at that and that's a quintessential Newberg project. And it's an acronym in here. And, those are just the type of good things the city is doing when you can pull an acronym out of a table and there's that much behind it. So, anytime that people feel down on the city, I just want them to think about the CVIA.
I would say look at these 60 partners. When we originally put this together, we did go back out to them. It was a big effort. It wasn't just about Newberg. We could not be insular. We could not have the walls. Dealing with the economy is based on a regional basis today, not individual cities. And so we touched a lot of people, make sure we're coordinated with SEDCOR, with Greater Portland Inc., with Business Oregon, our local organizations, and Oregon State technology companies, associations, and so forth, to make sure we have something that we believe will advance. And we've made a lot of progress in the last 3 years.
Any other questions? I have one comment, actually. The fact that you presented it to the chamber and to the Downtown Coalition, and they have 35 plus items on their particular plates, and they didn't balk completely, is, I think, a fantastic achievement. So there you go.
We have great partners.
There we go. All right. Any other questions, folks? Okay. I could entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt resolution 2019-3619.
Second.
Patrick with the second. Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, resolution 2019-3619 passes. Next, application to create a PERS side account. 8B. Participate in the employer incentive fund 25% match. Mr. Zook.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. What would your meeting be without a presentation from every department, finance, public works, police? So we're working around that tonight. I'll start at, I'll cut to the chase.
Library.
What about the library?
He can just come up and say
I defer my presentation.
No one ever thanks you for the library.
I just did.
Oh, we just did.
I'd like to defer my public comment to the library.
Sorry.
Well, let me cut to the chase. Hopefully you've read the report, but tonight is not an ask for money. Tonight is an ask for permission to put a stake in the ground to consider future money. There's a lot that goes into this, but primarily you probably heard a lot about PERS in the newspaper. And this legislature in 2019 funded $100 million to help cities with, and counties and school districts in particular, with their unfunded actuarial liability. The first round of applications, back up, PERS processes allowed for entities who are interested in participating in pre-funding their liability, basically reducing their rates in the future. They created an application process, and for the worst entities that had a unfunded actuarial liability percentage of 200% of their payroll or greater, that application process opened in September. The city was not in that position. We're at 138%, which is actually a pretty decent position. So our application process opens December 2nd. So I attended at the Oregon Government Finance Officers Association conference, had a nice in-depth class about that, and emailed directly with PERS and said, hey, if I'm going to present to the council, as many entities are, hey, would you allow the city, would you be interested in the city applying for a side account? The reason it's critical is because it's a first come, first served basis. So December 2nd, when that thing up to 10 o'clock, I mean, I think it's SurveyMonkey is the entity, or the vehicle for entities applying, and there's basically $85 million left. There are some big hitters out there that have a lot of PERS reserve on the side ready to go. But because it is first come, first served, we're going to be ready to go if you guys will allow us to move forward. The funding date does not require us to make a decision tonight. We would have until August 20th of 2020 to make a decision on how much we want to fund. So the beauty of that is that I'm not asking you for money tonight. I'm asking for permission to apply and then go through the normal course of our financial goal setting, our budget process, and then decide, okay, what are our competing priorities? You've heard several tonight. You've heard, you've got a body camera request, you've got from a different fund, but you've talked about streets. Every fund that employs a PERS employee who participates in it. So it's not just a general fund ask, it's every fund. So the maximum that the city can apply for is 1.3 million. And the beauty of the employer incentive fund process is that we get a 25% match to every dollar we put in. So for simplicity, I ran some numbers. I didn't put them in here because, again, I didn't want to confuse the issue and make you think you guys were trying to decide on a financial amount. But for example, if the city was to put in $400,000 into a side account, the state would kick in $100,000, so our side account balance would be $500,000. That $500,000 sits and is invested by PERS, and I put in the report, they've averaged about 10.3% over a very long time versus what we get through the local government investment pool of basically 2.5%. And that's variable. PERS has a much better traction on that. It's long-term investment too. So that $500,000 will be invested and then drawn down over time, much like it'd be amortized over 20 years, and then used to reduce the rates. PERS has a model that they designed for entities to use. In fact, they require you to use it in order to apply. And a $500,000, again for simplicity, $500,000 balance, we reduce the rate about 0.7%. Not a lot, but it would still move the needle a little bit. It would save about 40 to 50,000 a year across the city in contribution. So if you think of it, putting aside 20,000 over the next 20 years would actually get you 40,000 to 50,000 over the next 20 years. So some cities, I've heard some opinion that they will not do this, they will not take this through because of economic reasons. Heading into a recession, potentially lose their money. The way I've considered looking at that is, okay, you're going to get 25% right off the bat. If you lost the money, you're going to lose the state's portion of that. So, and again, it's a long-term investment. I will say the city has had a side account. They funded in 2004 through pension. The side accounts today are not allowed to be debt funded, so this has to be cash funded. So we're not looking to go out to voters and have them do anything that they want. So that's the long and short of it. So again, tonight I will say this, the reason why I would recommend that my request is to apply for the maximum amount is that you can reduce from the maximum amount between now and August. What you can't do is say, apply for 500,000, and then we decide we get a windfall, 1.3 million, we can't increase it above what we asked for. So the encouragement I got from the Carol Samuels is one of the gurus that monitors PERS really closely, is you apply. And again, I've had direct conversation with PERS and to confirm my understanding that, hey, if our process says we don't want to put a dime into this, we're okay to do that. So what I would do, based on your approval, would be go ahead and apply on December 2nd, and then build that into the budget process and see where we land with the other competing requests.
Questions for Matt?
Hi. So I did read this, but I did read it late, and also I'm not a finance person. So I had just one question, and maybe it's stupid and I apologize. But I'm just wondering what the impact is on the employees for this. Is there any negative impact, or is it neutral for employees and it's just positive for us as an employer?
Correct.
Okay.
It is
Just
neutral
wanted to make sure
employees.
my assumption was correct.
Yeah, the rates that this is affecting the employer rates.
Right.
So again, PERS is a defined benefit plan, so the rules about what their benefit is are fixed in the state statute. So
Right.
employer and investments fund those benefits as defined, and that's why we have a liability versus a defined contribution plan like your 401 or 457, where what you invest and what you earn is what you get at the end of your career.
So this is to help our liability.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? All right.
I will make a motion to submit an application to PERS to create a side account with a lump sum payment and secure the state's 25% match at the maximum match possible with a proposed lump sum payment date of August 2020.
Second.
Go. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, HC, Resolution 2019-3627 regarding the acting city manager designation.
I'll move on here so I can use the microphone.
Mr. Stone.
Just pulling up the PowerPoint. Kind of unusual for me to do PowerPoint. Thank you, Robin. So this comes before you tonight really to kind of accommodate David's schedule. I reminded him he's being kind of a high maintenance city manager, but generally he's pretty good to get along with. So we start with the charter, and the charter says when the manager is temporarily disabled from acting as manager, or when the office of manager becomes vacant, the council must approve a manager pro tem. So Joe retired, the office was vacated, we appointed David the manager pro tem. In the past, the council through resolution has adopted a succession kind of plan for dealing with city manager absences or temporary absences. And so, this would be fancy. I know. I'm entering into that world. So the current resolution from 2015 has two components. For planned absences or temporary absences, the council has designated to the city manager the authority to appoint
an acting city manager for a period of up to 7 days. And then for a unplanned absence or vacancy, we have a succession plan of community development director and public works director, which then, like in the instance of a vacancy, the council would act to appoint someone to fill in for a longer interim period. But that would at least have someone in place to step in, if David got hit by a bus or something.
Won the lottery, positive.
Yeah, okay. Sure. And the 7 day limitation is
Skiing again, so who knows what will happen.
So I need to recuse myself from this one.
the 7 day limitation is kind of an issue that we're dealing with now because of his time limitation and the necessity to appoint someone to act for a longer time period. So I'm just going to show you kind of how the council has, what kind of succession plans we've had over the past years, just to give you some kind of context, and then we'll talk about what's here tonight before you. So prior to 2015, we had city attorney, and if the city attorney couldn't do it, then the city manager would designate someone with a limitation not to exceed 4 weeks. And we had a similar for an unplanned absence or vacancy with the council appointed. In 2013, when we did have an assistant city manager, that person was the primary replacement, with the city attorney being the secondary, again, not to exceed 4 weeks. Prior to that, when we had a city manager pro tem appointed by the council, Bob Tardif, who was bridging the gap of between permanent city managers, the council adopted this resolution appointing Bob, but then having the city attorney and the public works director to be the backups, and no change for the other category. And prior to that, we were city attorney, finance director. That one, at the time, the charter actually read that the pro tem could not exceed 6 months in time period, and then there's a provision for council appointment. So this kind of goes back to all the resolutions we've had since the council has had them, or since the city has adopted the model charter and the modern kind of charter that we have. So you can see there's been some different iterations of this. So what tonight, which comes to you as kind of a change, and I did make a PowerPoint for that, is there's two kind of, again, the two categories. So for planned absences, the resolution 3627 says, for times of planned absence, the city council hereby delegates to the city manager the authority to appoint an acting city manager from city management staff for a period not to exceed 30 days, 30 calendar days. And then there's a requirement that the appointment be in writing, delivered to the city council and to the department heads. For temporary or unplanned absences, the proposal that's before you is, instead of having specific offices in a succession plan, the council would delegate to the mayor the ability to appoint someone for a interim kind of emergency basis for a period not to exceed 21 days, which would give the council then the time to meet in a regular meeting and appoint through the charter process a city manager pro tem. So instead of having an automatic person step into that position, we would delegate to the mayor to appoint someone quickly, and really kind of depending on the circumstance, it may be different who would be the most appropriate to step in those situations. And that, David, I think, can speak to that. That was an idea he had, and so that's what we brought here tonight. And with that, that's my presentation.
Right, questions, anyone? Go ahead, Elizabeth.
So sorry, just everything tonight. I had thrown a question in, it was late though, so I apologize, but I guess, I think this is a great idea. My only kind of hesitation is that 21 days as city manager is quite a long time for somebody to take on that workload, especially somebody who is presumably a director already and already has a massive workload.
Sure.
And so is there any type of compensation that we could put in to say, like, please don't kill yourself while you're doing this work, thank you?
Before you answer the compensation, can I just say that the way it actually reads is that for a period not to exceed 21 days or until the council is able to meet and take formal action as specified. So the 21 days was kind of thinking, okay, if it happened and we needed, to get it on the council agenda and get the, that the 3 weeks should get us covered. But if we had a council meeting quicker than that, that could be done in more time.
So, just a couple different things. So one, you did share that question with me earlier. In fact, I thought about it and said, well, yeah, of course. And so, we do have now a class pay structure, and went back and talked to HR about that, and so we've already made that adjustment. So that there will be a pay system consistent with that, with this existing policy. So that's one. Two, given the limitations that I have had on PERS, I shared with you from day one, we are in fact at a point where this is going to have to be exercised. I've got far fewer days of work in front of me through the end of the calendar year than I have days off through the end of the calendar year. So I'm going to be very discreetly opting in to do, and doing the things that I need to do. I'm always going to be available regardless by phone or whatever. But in the interim, Matt has generously agreed to take on that role. There will be a couple of days where I'm going to have to find somebody else because he's going to have a couple of days off. But by and large, between the two of us, we'll have full coverage and some consistent leadership. We consult on most everything we're doing at this point.
Any other questions, folks? Question?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt resolution 2019-3627.
Second.
Seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, resolution 2019-3627 passes. Resolution 2019-3599 regarding the Yano County Work Crew Program. Good evening, Russ.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Again, the resolution is to authorize the city manager pro tem, to execute an intergovernmental agreement with Yano County for the Work Crew Program. We had intended to have Jared Logsdon, who's the program manager here. However, at the last minute, he had a conflict with a county meeting and could not make it. One thing that I was able to obtain from him was their work crew program policies, which is included with the packet, and hopefully was able to answer some questions. I know a couple questions were forwarded that responded to. The purpose of this for us is significant financial savings and time savings. The maintenance department is responsible for the maintenance of the streets, storm, water, sewer, facilities, fleet. And with the growth in the stormwater detention facilities that we have with all the developments, we're running out of manpower rapidly to properly maintain these and ensure that they're operating right. The intent with this program would be for these inmate members to come in a couple times a year and maintain these facilities for us. Some of the ones that you easily see is along Springbrook Road, alongside the road, up towards the Allison, some of the bigger containers, Fred Meyer, and we've got them interspaced in all the new developments that are going on. And it's a bioremediation treatment of stormwater to filter out everything that runs off the road and capture it. Being vegetated, it grows like wildfire. And it's hard to stay ahead of. And this would be a hedge for us with that. So, that is my request, to bring it back. Again, apologize that Mr. Logsdon, and he apologizes that the conflict came up at the last minute, but I did want to make sure that we got the information out as far as the program policy and answer any questions that, I can't speak for him, but any other additional questions.
We're, just for information's sake, so there were a couple of questions that came out after we got the program guidelines. And one that Lisby originally mentioned is regarding compensation for the work crew members. And there is none. It's apparently it's one, if you'll notice from the packet, it's for 1 day reduction in sentence for every 3 days worked. And then the other question was regarding, was there any other, what the fee covered, and it covers solely their costs based on what they said, right?
What we pay covers the costs for the corrections deputy that's with work crew, their transportation vehicle, hand tools, power tools, fuel, I guess the sack lunch that they get when they go out, just to cover the expenses of putting the work crew program in.
Okay, any questions?
No, you should go, because I've asked 100 questions.
Okay, I have a question, and maybe I missed it, but I didn't see in this pack of information what their reduction in their sentence actually is.
Their reduction sentence, for every 3 days they participate on the work crew program, they get 1 day off their sentence, is what they get. So if they work 3 days, they get 1 day off. Reduction in the sentence. And that's confirmed. I did talk with your person.
Thank you.
Was it up to 1 day or definitely 1 day?
It is definitely 1 day.
It's definitely 1 day, okay.
1 day.
Sorry, that didn't count.
All right. Okay, yes, fire away.
I apologize I didn't get this question into you. I've been thinking about it, and basically I read the packet late. That's the reality. So, and I don't know if you can answer this, but do you know if there's any restriction on us paying these folks like a minimum wage?
I don't know. I actually did a little bit of research on my own, trying to go through the state's criminal justice program, taking a look at some of the commissary accounts that they have through the state prison system for inmates. They can put money in a commissary account for them. Anyone can through that. But there's nothing that speaks specifically to county. It only speaks to the state correctional institutions. Taking a look at some of the bully regulations and some of the other things, there's really nothing that speaks to this, and I can't answer that one way or the other. Jared would be the person who could do that.
Other questions?
I have one.
Yep.
If we were to delay this a little longer so we could talk to Jared, would that mess you up?
It's not going to mess us up at all. We are still able to use them intermittently. What the IGA does is give us the ability to schedule them on a more frequent and get into the schedule to where we're a permanent member like CPRD and McMinnville and Lafayette and the other ones that already have IGAs in place for it. We rely on what fits to do it. But right now, as far as the stormwater detention facilities, there's not a lot we can do other than, when it rains, beat water down the hole with a shovel. So it's really not going to hold us up dramatically for a length of time.
I have another question that I'm pretty certain you probably can't answer, but I want to put it out there because if we do have a chance to talk with him, is there any part of this program that matches these workers with an employer upon release? So is there any way that they're putting this on their resume and their supervisors are able to connect them with a place after release where they're actually utilizing these skills? Because I see in the thing that, part of what they're saying is a good thing for the inmates is that they're gaining skills and they're getting some things out of this program. But I'm wondering if that translates at all to when they're released, and if that's being facilitated, or if we're just saying, you now know how to mow the lawn go forth and we hope you get a job someday. So I know you don't,
I
answer
know,
that
but
question,
that's,
but-
again, that's something,
Yeah.
that's a good question to pose to Mr. Watt.
Given the questions that are still outstanding, maybe it is better to talk to try to see if we can get Jared to come in if we do have questions, unless somebody is otherwise happy with the IGA as it is.
I'm also wondering, I know that Casey Kula, county commissioner, was really interested in thinking about a solution that we could come up as on a county level as well. And I'm wondering if, what's his name, Logston?
Jared.
If maybe could come in during a work session, and we could like have that discussion then, not make any decisions, but just have that discussion about. I guess I feel like there's possibly a solution here of thinking outside the box.
Right.
And I don't want to delay, I understand that this is necessary, but I also feel like we might be able to get to where you're at, to say like, yeah, this would be really beneficial for us to get. I think that if we paid these folks a minimum wage, or even half of a minimum wage, we'd still have a big cost savings, but also could think about the impact on these individuals. So that's kind of where I would like to go at some point, and I'm wondering if we could move to a work session or something like that.
Yep, I mean, sure, that sounds good. If there's no great urgency, right? You said
There's
shoveling
not, and I
anyway.
can contact Jared
Yeah.
and see what his schedule looks like in the next couple of months and see if we can't match up his availability and council meeting.
That would be awesome.
and I know that we're looking at possibly having the commissioners on our work session agenda sometime in the new year, so I don't know if that
We're
would
still,
be.
we're still looking for
Yeah.
dates, I think.
Before February 29th.
No, so because we're gonna need to interview your replacement, we had to bump the board of commissioners from January 21st. And I just floated some dates back to Carrie for February 3rd or March, the 1st of March, but I haven't heard back from her yet, because we gotta line up with their schedule too.
That's fine, you'll hear from me in public comment.
Oh, there you go. All right, does that work then, Russ?
That works,
Okay.
and like I said, I'll see what we can match up his availability and council day.
Beautiful.
And thank you for sitting through everything.
Yeah, you went
Just
the whole
about that.
thing, just
Tell you
for this.
Hey.
I
Sorry.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Russ. All right, council committee reports, anyone? Looking around. Patrick, have a microphone, go ahead.
Sorry. So first off, it's not really a committee report, but I feel like I need to do this publicly since I did something else publicly. I want to apologize to Matt and David and city staff for my comments to Robert Suppy. That was mostly meant to encourage Robert and not slam staff. And I looked over after I said it and I got kind of a look and I went, oh crud. So I was just trying to encourage him to stay involved and keep me thinking. So I wanted to apologize. It was not meant as a diss or anything like that. Secondly, I also want to give kudos to staff, especially Sue and Doug, for helping me. I have a letter that I want to take to the Oregon Transportation Commission meeting on Thursday. Basically, this letter is our old letter, and I slammed in some of the language from the MWACT committee, which is the Mid-Willamette Valley Commission on Transportation. I think, committee, yes, okay, well, that was close. Again, I'll stick to my J job. And so I'm going to be asking you to sign that if you could. And then thirdly, that's all I have.
Okay. Anyone else?
I have something, but it's not coming.
Okay, I've got just one committee. I did attend the Willamette Falls Locks meeting recently. Yes, and it was interesting, and the takeaway was that, I don't know if you know this, but the Willamette Falls Locks are the oldest multi-lift bypass navigation lock in the nation. There you go, right up the river from us. There you are. Anyway, so that's what I got. Anybody else, committee? Anything else? Denise?
Okay. This is really quick because it's like 2 hours past my bedtime. Is it on now? Okay. So, Mr. Gunn talked about transparency, and I've had an issue with the report. Ms. Martin's, and I think the public deserves to know this, Ms. Martin's report had a very narrow lens, and it was based on the employee manual. There's some danger in that when you're considering the employee handbook and harassment versus police procedure and the employee handbook. So, for instance,
if Jeff Kosmicki was the Public Works Director and had done what Jeff Kosmicki did as Captain Kosmicki, yes, you could consider that harassment. But under police procedure, which he followed, you're allowed to change what the charge is, you're allowed to go from one agency who might not be able to take your case because they're busy, they don't want it, they don't like your evidence, to another one after you have permission from your DA, which we did and he did have. And Bradbury, our DA, is very willing to come and explain this to us in the name of transparency. That if you can't judge police procedure through this handbook, and even she gives a disclaimer that maybe it wasn't, but he is interested in helping us understand police procedure versus our employee handbook.
I wonder if I could suggest that if there's any interest in pursuing conversations like that again, that we do that in exec session and invite the legal counsel to explain the thinking rather than have this in a public conversation.
And I would be okay with that, except we released the report, so therefore we opened our own door to this.
If we're going to be inviting outside commentary on the subject of this investigation, then whoever is making the outside comment had better be ready for questions as well, is all I got to say on the subject. So, anyway, all right. Let's, okay, issue tracker. I have one item on issue tracker, and that's the Newberg flag. Yes, the Newberg flag is on there, and we attempted to check in with Visit Newberg, who's doing some marketing stuff, and they basically said what the Newberg flag looks like is not going to impact our marketing. So I would like your wise counsel on how to go about getting either the flag discussion going and maybe even some community input regarding said flag. You don't have to give it to me now, but think about it, please, as to how we take it off issue tracker and, yeah. So, anyway, so that's what I got from the issue tracker.
Mr. Mayor, if I may real quick,
Yes.
I just wanted to remind people the tree lighting is coming up. And Karen Tarmichael is still looking for volunteers. And so it's been marked off here as complete, but the tree was delivered this last week, right? Jay, it was dropped at the yard.
Yes,
Yeah.
we have the tree.
Yes,
We have
the tree is
Russ?
in the city's hands.
It's there?
So
It's there?
that is going to be coming up Saturday, December 7th at 6:30 at the Cultural Center Courtyard. And I've scrolled up so you can see Karen's email if you want to volunteer or do some people that want to volunteer, if you could encourage them to get in touch with her.
And if this is not a deterrent for your actual appearance, I have been charged with leading the crowd in Christmas carols. So for that, please, for that entertainment alone, you should be there. 6:30. 6:30. All right, the other thing, on December 5th, in Forest Grove, from 1 to 5 p.m., Municipal Fundamentals Training. And I know there are 2 of you who are already signed up, Jean and Stephanie. And all the rest of you and us, don't hesitate to sign up. That's Sue told me to prod you all, so there you go. Do we have anything else? It is, for the record, it's 9:59.